thanks everybody for coming out. We had to call in Dave the other night to get a quorum, but at least tonight, this morning here, we have all our regular members and 20 of them. It's just, Tony bought all these Dunkin' Donuts and coffee for us this morning, so thank you. We appreciate that very much, Tony. Thanks. Huh?
A little saucer.
Yeah, I see that. I want a cup of coffee, so instead of having it at Dunkin' Donuts, I'll buy 10 gallons and makes perfect sense to me. Oh, okay. Priscilla, what did you bring? Oh,
The red.
Huh?
Cranberry.
Cranberry bread. And she also reminded me it was 9 o'clock, because I didn't get it all day. Okay, so we will start with ambulance. That's public safety tab, page 2, and Todd is here. Morning, Todd. Coming.
Which section?
Public safety. Kind of. Shovel this morning.
So
This would be, yes.
I was going to ask a question, how, this is the first full year we've had the additional EMTs on 24-hour coverage. What's your opinion? How is it going?
It's made a huge difference. Like I was saying earlier, the amount of back-to-back calls we're having is unbelievable. With no explanation for it. Right? People that have scanners or whatever and listen, we're able to get the second ambulance out for the majority of the time. In fact, both of them are at the same time. It's quite often. And we didn't have that luxury before. But it's worked out. It's working out really well. Some of the couple of quick things there is before we were 24 hours a day, the average response time from the time we were dispatched to arrival was about 13 minutes, and now we're down to 9. And for getting the apparatus or the ambulance on the road used to be an average of about 6.5 minutes, and now we're down to about 3.5 minutes. So it's, of course, that's an average. But I would say, listening in the middle of the night, the ambulance is on the road. The majority of the time, it's 6 minutes responding. Whereas before, that would be, people would be signing on in that same amount of time and responding to the station, getting the ambulance to make the call. So it has made a huge difference.
Well, notice that the wages were up because that was, last year wasn't a full year, I don't think, for the wages because it started
Last year's budget, I'm pretty sure played June 1st is what we anticipated. So the increase obviously this year is for the whole year.
Right. And you get revenue too from, I looked to see, I don't know how much.
The revenue so far, I hadn't pulled it yesterday, if I'm reading it correctly. So far we brought in $262,593.
And those are, if I'm right, those are for transports. I mean,
That's
right, from generally it's insurance,
Yeah.
that health insurance that
Yeah, so I mean, before it used to be a little bit under, of course, now it's only about half of what was it, but still, we're getting some revenue back.
Excuse me.
oh, yes, Dave.
Todd, I've been after that result for about 10 years, and I'm so glad to hear that. Those response times are so critical. So we really are in good shape there. But I also understand you've been promoted. You work out of town now.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the fire truck getting out, I know there's if you hear the sirens and it takes a little time before you see them on the road. We still have enough in-town people that they can get there and respond quickly with the fire trucks?
That part really hasn't changed a whole lot. I mean, it depends on the day as to who's around, like it always has. But keep in mind, they're responding to the fire truck as well. They're not on the ambulance call. They're the first ones out the door with the first truck.
So
they're doing both.
They're doing both.
Yes. Yeah, they're not just for ambulance. They're for both.
concerns about getting enough people and the response and all that?
Well, it's like always, I mean, it's all, if you look around every other town, it's got the same issue as far as, you know, the call portion of it, there isn't as many people as they used to be, but it's working. You know, I think we're probably better than some, you know, probably not as good as others, but I think we're average for the department we have, but a lot further ahead with the 24-hour coverage.
I think Pete had questions.
On the revenue end of that, Todd, is that revenue, and this part will go to the town as well, that revenue go back into the general
Yes.
fund?
Yes, it does, Pete.
Okay.
How's that upstairs, that we finished a couple of, is that working out? We need any changes? You guys happy with it?
No, it's working out very well. We've had a couple of issues with the heat and AC
Okay.
that they're taking care of. The little couple issues with reception up there as far as, you know, receiving the calls, but they're making all that work. I've got some new stuff coming to try to amplify that, but
So the facilities are good?
it's working out very well.
Todd, I had a question about the ambulance uniforms. It looks like you increased the number of people, I think, but it doesn't look like there was much of an increase from 2018 and you got 4375. I mean, is that
Some of the
scheduled?
Some of the stuff I tried to adjust down because it was such an impact, but with the new people that we have, we got the new stuff for them this year. And there was an issue with the company we had. And so I kept it kind of the same. I didn't inflate it a whole lot, remembering that there still may be some fluctuation in this next year because we haven't gone through one full year yet. But everything is I think we'll be okay with what we have.
Okay, I just seem curious to increase the workforce and not need to increase the
Well, I did increase it last year in anticipation of the full time
okay.
from the year before. So it was modified some for last year, but I didn't change it a whole lot this year only because of the other last increases.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have questions on this section for the 477,944?
I'll move the line.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Thank you, Todd. Now we'll move on to fire, which is public safety, page 3.
This one, as usual, it fluctuates year to year, depending on call volume, like call pay. So there are a few changes in it, but for the majority, it's not off a whole lot from what it was.
I get to see the equipment on Schedule A, the next page, for the new equipment that is a pretty good indicator. I mean, a description of what we.
For what we end up, buying or having to change out every year, it doesn't constitute, sometimes we have to shuffle things around with stuff that gets broke. We obviously go buy it and, I'll delete it out or whatever. There may be some years where we may not go exactly on this list because if something gets broke, obviously I've got to replace that. And so something may get deleted off the list that I have to get it. The air pack bottles, they're only good for so many years. Now we've got to the end of that cycle, so we're starting to swap them out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've always supplied us with really good information, and especially equipment replacement. I know that you've maintained the plan even on your own for replacement for 5 or 6 years out into the future, which has been pretty helpful, especially with the price of ambulances and the fire trucks. And like I say, I know you've always let us know what you're going to need in advance, so that's appreciated.
Excuse me, Jerry.
Yes, Pete?
On the medical supplies, Todd, I'm noticing down here you got $19,000 that you're looking for. Isn't that billed out to the insurance companies?
We get money back for what when we put the bill in, we bill it a certain, the company bills at a certain level depending on what we're running at that day, whether it's a basic, an intermediate, paramedic, or whatever, so that's all done. The hospital replaces some of the stuff when we go to the hospital, like IV sets, that kind of stuff. But a lot of the stuff we have to still buy on our own. The oxygen is a huge thing, we have to buy that on our own. So anything that's in the emergency medical is stuff that we still have to purchase that we don't get back. We may get reimbursed for it, may go to the general fund, but I still have to budget for it.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I mean, somehow that money's coming back in. Is that part of the revenue source?
Part of the revenue depending on the level of service that we're billing for.
Okay.
So technically, yes, but it's not itemized right down, to everything that was used on the call.
Okay.
Like you say, the hospital reimburses you, gives you, replaces something here.
And that, it seems like that fluctuates year to year. Some years, they'll do, say, 50% of the stuff, 60% of the,
I would just think that would be billable to the patient who's ever being transported. All of that would be billable, under that, to their insurance company. It would come back in separately and we could itemize it out. And, that, not part of the revenue, not asking the town for it in that situation, but.
right. We can't depend on the revenue, so
Okay.
whatever comes in, like I said, goes into the general fund. I still have to budget for it, so I can buy it.
Okay.
Well, because the insurance companies, they only pay for the transport, for patients. If you had an accident, or I guess probably if you take someone from the medical center down to another hospital, that would be on their insurance, and we would get
so much
reimbursed
for it. And the other thing is we're in an agreement with Frisbee, which we get so much money if we have to call for their paramedics, if we don't have one. There's so much, they will do the billing, but they'll automatically cut us a check for so much money. It's a lower rate, obviously, but for having the service that we can depend on to call, it's just hard of, having that, agreement with them. Because we can't double bill, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So if they come up, they'll do the billing, and even though we transport, they cut us a check for a certain amount of money to cover our portion of the transport.
Yes, ma'am.
So we also use a third-party billing company, Comstar,
Mhm.
and for all of that, including our transport, there's set amounts that we can charge, and if we run afoul of Medicare or Medicaid, then we can't charge anybody. So I wouldn't want to take on billing and trying to itemize aspirins and ice packs and ace bandages. It would be more than anything that we could handle. Comstar renews all our Medicare and Medicaid agreements. They make sure that we're billing in compliance with those. And if we don't comply with Medicare and Medicaid billing, then we can't bill anybody else either. So it would be very problematic to start billing for the supplies separately and trying to track it separately.
And I think Comstar has been doing that for quite a few years, and I think their service has been.
We just renegotiated with them last year because there was another company that came on the scene that was doing a better percentage.
Mhm.
So I went back and I told Comstar we were looking at the other company, and they gave us another full percentage point. So we signed a three-year for that. So we'll look at that again at the end of the next 3 years and see if we can do better.
Like I said, the hospital reimburses a lot of our supplies,
Mhm.
but this line is to pick up what they don't. You figure, I think right now we're just under 700 ambulance calls alone. So it's a lot of running.
Mhm. Well, and I noticed that they've been having a lot of back-to-back calls. I guess there's nothing, nothing you can do about that. There's none of that
Right.
planned, so it's very,
Have you seen a huge increase in the overdoses? No.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, we have to, but it's nothing like, the cities and stuff.
Yeah.
It's here, but it's not, at least, what we're being called to right now, it hasn't really, I don't think it's much different than what last year.
yes.
Move the line.
Dave had a question, sorry.
Okay, so
I guess this is a touchy subject, but I wonder how many, roughly, what percentage of our calls are related to drug overdose? And you guys do the Narcan. What's the fraction?
I would say it's very low. It's not
Very low.
We don't have
600 in the annual report, I think you had that broken down last year, but it didn't seem like there was a lot of,
It's hard to say those because you can't really disclose a lot of that information.
yeah, I mean, well, you can put the number of responses for that situation. I don't think that's gonna violate anybody's.
I would say, I would take like Dave said, 2025 a year.
One is too many.
It is, you're right.
Well, some of them aren't necessarily for opiates either.
Right.
They would be like grandma might have taken a medication twice,
Mhm.
so
Right.
it's tough to really judge that.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, someone can mix a prescription with alcohol and something and have the same reaction. So I mean, it's just, that aspect of, just the differentiation between the car accident and that type of a medical situation.
And the $23,000 increase in the holiday, that's because of the new guy, the 24-hour service, is that something to do with that?
Yeah,
Isn't
back
that
to the
what I'm
numbers.
seeing here?
It's because we went from 3 full-time working 12-hour shifts and getting 9.5 holidays. We did away with furlough days, so now they get 11.5 holidays. We now have 7 full-time guys, and they're 24 hours. So it's more people, more hours, more holidays.
Oh, I get it, I'm just trying to associate where it's going.
Yep. It's 3 different things, so.
Yeah. Everything goes up, not many things come back down again.
Move the line,
Second.
$205,699.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? East Wakefield Station will be the next page, I think at the top of the page. Still a very small budget.
Second,
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? We can go down to the next section, which is the Union Fire Station.
Move the line.
Second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? And the forest fire section
Move the line.
for,
Second.
does anybody have, we have a motion? Anybody have any questions on any of these? Elizabeth, you all set with these?
I do have one question, if I may, because I haven't
Yes.
been through the process. Todd, you all set with equipment on forest fire? I mean,
That's what I put that in there for.
Okay.
It's the buy equipment. So,
all right.
yeah, we have the, which is figured in, I did put a grant in, for the 2000, again, it was going to general fund, we did a couple of years ago, but, I did put in for a grant from forestry for, our share, it would be $2,000 for a new, pump on the back of the forestry, truck that, runs the ski unit.
Yep.
Which the pump's about $5,000, and, so I'm hoping to get a grant for that, because I don't want to do the general fund, but I did budget for the pump, so next year I'm going to pump on it. That one's back in the 80s, and it's getting higher, so, so I just put it for that, but that's what I use that for, is forestry hose equipment.
I'm pretty sure it's running on 1 cylinder.
Yeah, it's,
It's close.
I'm pretty sure it's
Okay. Must sound like one of those old portable motors they used to have there that had the bailey ring.
yeah.
Any more questions? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Looks like that takes care of all the fire and ambulance.
Okay, I know you're not doing it today, but I just want, I think you got the capital, did you get a copy of the capital?
We get the CIP, yes.
Okay, for the 75 for the truck for this year and the 40 for the year. I just wanted to,
Yeah, we'll be doing that.
Oh, okay, so that's for the warrant articles.
so still on schedule, looking at the ambulance and, it'll probably be in 20 of them. And, the fire truck will be the rescue, will be the next one for the staff, for the training staff. To get that.
Right.
We've got, right, we're working on getting that pulled together now, we're looking at probably $455 to replace the rest of it.
Right, and when was the Upmo? Was that 3 years ago? You got the one with the tank on it?
Yeah.
And yeah, because I read I got too much junk here, but I did read your,
I think we got that at 15.
Yeah, I think it's
was it 15? Yeah, I did read in the CIP where you had laid out those
And I talked to Selectman, and I know I talked with Al about it, doing something with a boat. We're probably gonna plan on it for 20, and I did not put in this year. I left it out just to get started on the capital reserve, but I'll probably next year try to do something with that. We gotta do something to upgrade the boat, so whether we get a fan boat or what we'll end up with.
But I mean, that's probably a discussion for another day.
Right,
Fan
yeah.
boat or something
Just so-
would seem practical because we could use it for ice rescue as well as open water. So I mean, you're a hover type or, yeah, so, but you did,
I have it on there. I did put that on there.
You did, okay.
yeah. It was in there, I was reading it last night. I was bored and go through all this stuff. Thank you, Tom, very much for coming out and helping us with that.
Good job, Todd.
Next, we have community services, libraries. Pam Wiggin is here for the libraries. You want to do the libraries first, or Heritage, Pam, it doesn't matter?
Library's fine.
Community services, page 2.
So, our request for the Wakefield Library is $96.10. That is the amount we've level funded for the last several years. Last year, $1,948 was taken from the budget by the selectmen before we presented it to you. And this year, in my meeting with the selectmen, they agreed to put that back in. So we're back at the level funded amount of $96.10.
Okay, that's line 12, 455, 01, 12. And the Wakefield Library was the only one that you were going to discuss.
Yeah.
I'm the president of the trustees.
Because we have the GAFNI and the adult learning. I think that,
That's a separate,
yeah,
totally separate.
Carol usually comes in, I think, and does those.
How do we approve that line without approving the section?
Well, we could just do the section, right? With the,
We can do individual lines.
Okay,
Yeah.
right there.
I will approve the motion for the Wakefield Library for $9,610.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed.
I heard a second with
Heritage, general government, page 7, general government section tab 7. Heritage is the bottom half of the page. That's bottom half of page 7.
So the request is $14,441. The increase is based on our clerk. We asked for 20 more hours and also increasing her to $15 an hour. She's been working at 11 something for the last few years. And she does our minutes, she does, helps with the website and the promotional materials, newspapers, etc. for us, for the Heritage Commission, and under us, the Freight House crew at the Freight House in Union. The other amount is increase in heating oil, and that's for the railroad station in Union. And it's based on the quote. I believe this is the figure the town has for this year, right? Or is it the old figure? The 250?
The 258 looks familiar. It looks like what Parks and Recreation used. It looks like it's up like 70 cents a gallon from what we had last year.
Yeah. So, are there any questions on that? We did acquire the East Wakefield School this past year. We've done a lot of the restoration. It was opened in July. We've had a good turnout every time we've been open. The expenses on the East Wakefield School do not come from this budget. When the school was turned over to us last year by the selectmen, they didn't want any of those items, anything we spent there, to come out of Fund 1. So we do that out of our donations line and 04 fund.
Pam, does the Heritage Foundation generate any revenue at all?
Say that again?
Does the foundation, the commission, I'm sorry, generate any
We got some donations. In fact, we had a very lengthy discussion about this at our last meeting. We got a very large request, which allowed us to spend in the last year. We spent over $100,000 on upgrades to the town's buildings that we were in control of. So we had some new roof, we had exterior painting, we had a lot of work done. We do have some people that send us a donation at the end of the year, but we really don't bring in very much. Other than some major donors, this year to date only brought in $1,100 and some dollars. So we had a very lengthy discussion at our last meeting about charging admission. We charge no admission for any of our sites, and the majority of the commission feels we should, based on the conversations we had the other night, but two people felt quite strongly not to do it yet this year, maybe wait till later on, but I do feel we need to do a combination of charging admissions and possibly maybe become a member for a certain amount and you don't have to pay when you come. And we were talking about children being free anyway. But so to answer your question, it's just what we get. We have a donation box at the East Wakefield School and in Union. We've got at the railroad station. We've gotten donations this year for the East Wakefield School, a few $100s, and it was asked that it be used for the school. And so some of our friends at the East Wakefield School who donated time, help, and come in as docents, basically they're the ones that did some extra donations, asked that we just use it there. So that's what we do with what comes in at the East Wakefield School.
I want to just make sure that before you do implement any kind of charges, that you double check all your grants, because we just had a review of the grant that was done for the ball fields, and if we charge anything for the use of those ball fields, we have to pay the grants back. So if you go to charging, you just want to make sure, I know you do a lot of grant work, and so if any of those are passed through federal grants, you could be nulling and voiding your grant agreement. So for what you would collect, it wouldn't be worth voiding your grant.
I agree. And in the past, we thought that we get more by people giving us something when they come in and not asking for admission. But this past year, there was a lot of advertising and promotion that it was free. So the one thing I asked at the last meeting, if we're not going to charge, I don't want it being promoted as free, because we need to have some money we're going to be using up all the Fund 4 in the next few years with planned projects. And we need to have some money coming in, because we do those sorts of things. And we did originally 25 years ago when we got the garden building. It was all out of Fund 4. We have never come to the $2,500 for the town, from the town is the only amount that goes into some of the restoration. And the rest is a lot of our outside support.
And those donations go into that other fund, which are held by the town treasurer. So I think a lot of that doesn't come back into the general fund.
It comes back into us for us to continue to do the work we do.
Right.
But it doesn't cover what we do.
Well, I mean, ambulance and fire and all those funds come back into the general fund and get spread with these parks and recreation and needs. And I think there's one of the police department has.
We're similar to a conservation commission. Those monies go into our Fund 4, and we just pay the things that we don't come to the town for. We pay out of the Fund 4.
Pam, have you made any progress with Turntable Park on the state?
I personally think we made a lot of progress.
Good.
I am coming to the selectmen's meeting Wednesday night to ask the selectmen to agree that if we get the freight house, and if we got Turntable Park in a purchase or lease, that if everything falls together, the selectmen are in favor of us continuing to pursue the freight house with Eversource. So last Wednesday, right, Kelly? Kelly had sent me an email 6 weeks or so ago to see if there was anything I could do to step in and help with the turntable park acquisition, whatever it be, because it has to go, the department involves historic resources, cultural and natural resources. And so I sent a letter off to Nadine Miller, who is at the Division of Historical Resources, and in the same department as Chris Gamache, who Kelly's been communicating with. At any rate, we all, Chris was there, Nadine from DHR, Kelly, our code enforcement, building inspector, several members of the Heritage Commission, Joe Kenny, who I missed. All the players that needed to be there were able to get a meeting. Oh, and Eversource met with us at the Freight House that we were asking if they'll donate it to us. And we want to move it to Turntable Park. And so we'll have something here in the center of town. We really don't have anything of historical nature that brings people into Sangerville. They come to East Wakefield, they come to Union, but we wanted to preserve some of what's here. And I thought it went well. I've had communication since then. Based on what I'm understanding from the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, I think we'll have a lease if the town goes that route. Kelly can go into more detail with that probably when it's appropriate, I guess, right, Kelly? But I think that's definitely going forward, and I will hear this week from Eversource if they're going to give us the building or charge a small amount. They have a meeting on the 19th, and the community relations person and the real estate department head were here as well, and they told me we determined if it's a go this coming week, and then the details would be later in November or in December. But I told them they need to leave it there. We have to leave it there till it goes through the town. And we're actually going to apply for a grant to do the archaeological survey at Turntable Park, so because we can't disturb any of those early footprints of the buildings that were there and the structures that were there. So we're working on all that. That sound right, Kelly?
Sounds like a lot going on to Turntable Park.
There is, and unfortunately, we got some kind of mixed messages from Chris Gamache he was the head of the Bureau of Trails with DRED. Now they've reorganized, so it's all part of the same. But we got some bad information last year, and so I had put a warrant article on to acquire that, and we were told that, it would just be like $1,100 in administrative fees. So I put a warrant article in to acquire it and spend up to $1,500. Now they're telling us if we want to acquire Turntable Park, we have to pay fair market value, we have to pay for a commercial appraisal, which is considerably more than $1,500. I have mixed feelings and have not taken it to Board of Selectmen about putting a permanent structure of that magnitude and that historical value on a piece of property that the town doesn't own, because those leases generally say, you have a 25-year lease to use the land, but if we want it back, any buildings you put on it are forfeit or you have to move them. Mm-hmm. So I want to make sure that the town is, if we do put a building of that age on there and spend all that money to move it, that we're protected more than their regular lease. So, and because we did a warrant article to acquire it, now I have to go back to the taxpayers and say, just kidding, now we're going to lease. Or do you want to spend the money for a commercial and perhaps have to pay fair market value? And apparently the politics have changed within the state and within that department, that they used to be okay with letting towns acquire things, and especially things like this that we've maintained and taken good care of and is a central part to our community. Now they've kind of backed down from the acquisition and would prefer you lease it and do a long-term lease. So there's some slippery slope here. We've got to go back to the residents and clarify that so that the taxpayers are clear on what we can and cannot do and what they want to do. Right. And the selectmen have on that. They were behind acquisition, but they don't even know yet as a board about the fair market value and commercial appraisal. So there's some stuff behind the scenes.
The state can definitely see value. I mean, they can put a dollar value on anything, and I don't think they're
Well,
But they're not gonna let it go for free, so.
well, there's a couple things, and those conversations did involve Kelly the other day. We talked, Kelly and Nadine and myself and Chris were talking about the protections that we need to have. And since it's all under cultural and historic resources, I think, they're playing, the politics is very different, and the Division of Historical Resources has a huge input. They can't make a decision separately because it's a historic site. And I've actually had an email that I haven't had a chance to tell Kelly about. It came in yesterday from Nadine that she discussed it with people in her department, and she feels I need to apply for CLG grant for archaeological survey so that we'll be all set, and that they will come out and look at that with the state's archaeologists prior to the grant even be funding because of the time frame. So that's my plan at this point, to change the grant application that I've already submitted, and for her to come back to me and say, this is what the department thinks you should do, and get it in, because it has to be in by the end of November, and I had it in the beginning of November, and change it for this purpose. I think they certainly feel we're going to be able to do that, or they wouldn't be agreeing, which they'll have to do by January in Concord, to give us this grant if they don't think we're going to be able to have Turntable Park again.
Yeah, I think it works to our advantage to have Nadine shepherding it through her own department, because she can put more pressure on Chris Gamash's branch to protect, because it is of historic value. So I think we're leveraging the department against itself to protect. It protects the town as well as the building.
Sounds like a lot of pieces that we have
It
to
is,
put together.
and we'll be working through it over the winter, and deal with the movement, hopefully next summer, if we can make it all work. The town will have to agree to continue the lease there. There was one other thing I just was thinking about regarding that. I'm very optimistic, and they will be determining the exact location because of the footprint. We're thinking that we'll actually be able to expose some of the sites that are there now and do interpretive signage and do a lot, explaining to people the historic value of that park. So I don't think they would have asked me to put that forward because they have to make a decision if they didn't think we'd get to grant the lease again. And they are talking 25 years, and they know we want these sites, these buildings protected.
It's a lot of history right in that spot. Anybody else have any questions on?
Move the 14,441.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Thank you,
Thank
Pam,
you.
for coming out. We appreciate it. If we can flip to the previous page, 6 of the top of it is our legal line, which is just a legal one single line. Well, I guess it's 2 we have a dollar now. Slightly down from $2,000 down from last year. Because we have an explanation on the side. Anybody have any questions on that?
No, you also got to remember, we moved money down to the assessing department.
Yeah, there's 2,100 or 2,000 in assessing, and then there's 1,000 in the land use as well,
Yeah.
which you guys haven't gotten to yet. So it's down 2,000, but I've moved 3,500 somewhere else. So it is total up a little bit, but I've moved it around to try to reflect where we're actually spending it.
Right, I remember you mentioned that last year, 2 days ago. Seems like it was a year ago. Yes.
I'll move to 28,001. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Back to the library.
I'm sorry?
Go back to the library.
Oh, hey Barry, sure, we can go back to the library.
You already did us?
Well, no, we had just done the Wakefield library, we've done that one section with him. So that's page 2, community services, page 2. Because you have all the information on the GED programs and the actual library for it.
why was the reduction made by the selectmen? Kenny?
We had looked at the increases over the years, and we looked at the total amount we're gonna be spending with the chief's budget and how much the taxes were going up. So we were trying to cut every place we could cut, and we asked the library if they could live with last year's budget, and they reluctantly said yes, they could. But we cut aggressively as we could. And this was one of the ones, I mean, I remember back when I was a treasurer at the library, and I remember how much the town used to give the library then and where we are today. And we've been supporting the library extremely well over the years. And everybody wants more money all the time. This is one area where we thought we're gonna ask them to live with last year's budget. So it's no thing in particular, it's just we're trying to hold down the expense.
Same with the literacy program?
Yes.
Isn't that library currently owned by the county?
Not anymore.
Not
Well,
anymore.
it was a county library, but the county has disowned it, so it was originally set up as a county library, now it's a private library.
So it's all in our hands?
Yes.
Now, a few years ago, was there one article to put money, we were gonna expand and do some improvements, was that all, have you done that?
The improvements that we
Yes.
did a couple of years ago to address the water issues, we've done that.
Oh,
Yeah, and all of that comes out of our, that's not something that the town pays for. That's something that comes from our reserves.
Yes.
May I ask, the decrease in funding, may I ask how that's going to negatively impact you from your perspective?
From my perspective, of course, I'd rather have the 141.8 rather than even less, actually less than what you gave us last year. It will impact us in the sense that we're not getting money now for the literacy program for the Alden Young, so that's about 7,600. We've got to back out of there. I guess the Alden Young Trust is not distributing any funds. So that, we have to absorb that. Also, for the testing center, we're going to have to absorb that $6,000. The school has not funded that. And we have some staffing issues. I hope to retire someday soon. And so we've got a couple of resignations, and I would hope to reorder the way the staff is set up. So it may impact us in that way as well. And I'd just like to say, when the taxes go up, the libraries use more. So one of the first things that people will do is get rid of their cable, their internet. They'll use, they won't be buying books as much. So when the taxes go up, we have more usage.
I believe the school decided to fund $3,000 for the testing center.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I believe the school decided to fund $3,000 for the testing center.
I was not aware of that.
I think they just voted on it like the last Monday at a special meeting.
Well, that's good news.
Back up to your 141 that you needed?
Yeah, that's different.
No, it's
Actually,
Oh, okay.
yeah, we're just talking about the library now. It gets confusing because we've separated the literacy budget out of the library just so that you have a better accounting.
Okay.
Have you thought about asking SAU 64 for the other $3,000 that they contributed? Because you still have people from Milton that use that center, right?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Have you thought about asking SAU 64 for the other 3,000 because they had paid that in the past, and you do have your students coming to your center?
We have very few, if any, Milton students.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was actually more beneficial to us.
Okay.
They were giving us that.
I knew at one time you had some Milton students.
Right.
Okay.
So, but that's good news. That's very good news. I was not aware of that. In the past, you've asked me to provide you with some statistics for the library, so I have a very brief list here if you'd like to hear some of them, unless you're in a big hurry.
Sure. No, you.
Okay, we're actually open 1,300 public service hours, it's called, a year, which is very, for a community of our size, is very small. For instance, Ossipee, who has a smaller population than we do, is open 1,600, 1,700 hours a year. So we're only open 25 hours a week. That I would like to increase, and of course that takes an increase in the budget. So maybe that's in the future, but it's always stuck in my craw that we can't be open more hours to the public. We have 2,011 active members. I've eliminated all people who have library cards who have not participated somehow in the library over the past 2 years. So over the past 2 years, we've had 2,011 active members. 38,000 visits to the library. 3,120 reference transactions. That's helping people with various projects or internet help, things like that. We've checked out 22,000 items. That includes books, audiobooks, movies, even a telescope and a cribbage board. So of those, 7,000 were children's items. We have downloadable items. We pay through into a consortium with the state of New Hampshire for downloadable audiobooks and ebooks. We had about 4,000 users or downloads last year. We have had 48 people use our museum passes. So we have museum passes to the Remick Museum, the Libby, the Wright Museum, the New Hampshire Farm Museum, the Remick, and the Dover Children's Museum. We have 7 public access computers, copier printers, notary services. We like to book or push our library as your home away from home. So we have a lot of people in the summer who come up here, lawyers, doctors. You can see them actually sitting on the floor in the library with their stuff spread out using the resources that we have for them away from home. We put on 396 programs last year. 131 of those were for the youth library, and 34 of those were for teens. And for those programs, we had 2,440 people attending. The summer reading program is always very popular. This year we had 82 young people sign up for the program, including the daycare centers, etc. And if it weren't for our volunteers, I don't know what we would do. We've got volunteers almost all of our open hours that help us. So, yeah, I was pretty impressed with those stats. I hope you know.
Quite a list, yes. Maybe we could get a copy of that. That'd be handy to have. All of the had.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Can I just ask if you could present those with your budget in the future so that all the members will have it?
Sure.
It'd be easier to read it than to listen.
I can make a copy of this and give it to you.
It'd be
It's very rough for my own use, but I'll get
But
it.
I could submit it to everybody with their budget.
Sure. I'd love to do that. And I would love to have all of you come into the library and just see what goes on there.
Thanks, Barry, for.
So that's the library part of it.
Right. Does anybody have any questions on the 138,000 for the library? Someone want to make a motion for that?
Make a motion to move that line, 138,000.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Not opposed. And the adult learning program is the bottom line.
All right, so that's called the Gaffney Library Adult Learning Center. I think sometimes there's some confusion about the difference between the Learning Center, which we've always called the literacy program, and the testing center. So the part of this program that you folks fund through this part of the town is the Learning Center. And the Learning Center is open Wednesdays from 3 to 7. And again, I have kind of a list of things that go on there that I can let you know what happens. So, like sometimes you'll ask me how many people have passed the high set, which is formerly the GED. Well, that part of the program is the testing center, which is funded by the SAU. However, to get to that point, students need to learn all the information to take that test, and that would be the portion that you pay for, the learning center. We're staffed by 4 certified teachers and another person who's graduated with a degree in accounting. Everybody who comes into the center, and we address whatever issue, we pride ourselves in addressing any issue that comes through that door. We never know what it's going to be, and I have to tell you that these guys who work there they jump on it and they address the issue. We work with homeless people. We work with adult students in who are in their 70s. Some of them want to pass the high set and get their high school credentials. We work with everybody, all orders of the population. We train people on computers. It's just amazing what happens when you're down there. I would urge any one of you to drop in there any Wednesday between 1 and 7 and see what goes on. It's amazing. And that program actually would be at the library if we had space. So we pay rent to the resource center. And I understand that is back in our budget, Kelly? Is that the rent for the resource center, we're paying that?
The match.
Oh, yeah, when we were meeting with the selectmen, we backed that out of our literacy
No,
budget.
they didn't back it out, but they supported it at the 25,000, not the 27,130.
Yeah.
They did not back the rent out at all. How much rent do you pay?
So we're directly paying the rent?
Yes.
Okay. We've had 287 visits in the learning center. That consists of 65 individuals, so the visits, and then plus 65 individuals.
Just had a question. My understanding was that the library now owns the Branson property next door. How can that tie in with your need for that extra space from the resource center to be moved into that location?
At this point, do you want me to go into that now? At this point,
Well, I mean, is there a short answer to the?
yeah, there's a short answer. In the new proposed addition, there's a community room, and then we would bring that back into the community room.
Okay. Well, that was.
And so I guess, I'm sorry, but why isn't that happening instead of paying the rent down there? Why isn't that being shifted up to here?
After we put on the addition,
Well,
I don't know, you got the building space right now. I don't know what kind
we
of
don't
space.
have the space right now.
no, they have to do an addition to accommodate it, right?
No, we rent space, we rent storage space at the storage unit, we rent space at the resource center, specifically for this program and the testing program.
Understood, but that building seems to be occupied by Fred at this point, and my understanding is the library owns it, so if Fred wasn't occupying that building, why wouldn't you be able to pull
It's
your
not ADA accessible, we would have to do all kinds of work on that building, and it's not really, the space is not conducive to what we need.
Because for that with the SAU building down in Union, because that wasn't handicapped accessible. Well,
Do you know how many people in that program are from Wakefield?
Yes, about 95% are from Wakefield. We do occasionally, again, if the program were located in this area, because of the transportation factor, I think 99% probably would be from Wakefield.
how many people would that be? Would that be like 50 or 25, 50?
65,
65?
yeah. Or last year it was 65.
Okay.
It seems to be building this year. And then also what's happening too with the students that you tuition to Spalding, once they get to Spalding, if they're not able to participate in the regular class load, they're sent or given the opportunity to go to the Bud Carlson School. Bud Carlson can have them go out into various alternative situations. One of the situations is the Dover Adult Learning Center that's located in Rochester, in a church in Rochester. So they have the opportunity to go there from 9 to 11, 4 days a week. Transportation-wise, that's not really good for our Wakefield students, so they come to us. They have to get permission from the SAU superintendent to do that, but they come to us. And I'd like to just say that once they leave the Bud Carson part of Spalding, you no longer should be paying tuition. And so when they come to us, it's free. So you should not be paying tuition to the students that leave the Bud Carson school. So for instance, if they go to Dover Adult Learning, Dover Adult has a grant that covers them. And then we have the money that comes from you that covers them in our center. We have a lot of them that come from Dover saying they would much rather come to us because we're one-on-one. And we make them succeed.
I didn't realize that Bud Carlson was that type of a program where they would outsource. I thought it would be like the school or the SAU would make the decision to put them there, and that would be something we,
I don't think it works that way.
no, apparently it doesn't.
Yeah.
Apparently Bud Carlson.
So we have job fairs. We have been approved to conduct the acupuncture test, which a lot of college students take and have to pay for, but it's free there. And that is a test that gives them placement once they get into school. We do that. Through our career counselor, every student in the study center goes through the career counselor. They do resumes, we do job searches for them. So it's a pretty comprehensive program. You get all that for $25,000.
Right, I mean, and you know, I think like Ellie mentioned, I mean, that was because we have a lot of supporting information in these pages and these budget books, and those are things that, you know, we had in the budget book. We could review a lot of that ahead of time, maybe get the impact from it, but that does sound like a lot.
Does Carlson Center get money from the Rochester SAU?
Excuse me, if they take a test, if they're coming from Spalding to take a test, the SAU from Spalding should be paying for the test.
And if they pay us, do we
We
get
bill,
money? Okay.
yeah,
If they pay?
after a fact. We're currently,
Okay.
yeah.
I know we worked for a while.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any more questions on the $25,000 in that line?
25,000.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. And opposed?
I'll get that information to you.
That'd be great, thanks. Thank you for coming over and helping us with that.
Thanks for your support.
We need to approve that bottom line, or we all set?
I'll move the line, 172.60.
All,
I'll second.
motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
I guess we're at general administration, general government, page 10. Pretty close to the end, I think, maybe the last page.
Last page, very last page.
I started from the long end to count all the way down through there. Should have remembered that from this morning when I looked at these. Great. So the website maintenance is up, and we added more to that, apparently to that contract.
So what happened is it's Virtual Town and City is the company, and it was bought out by a company called Civicware. And Civicware is migrating our platform to a new platform, and we'll discontinue supporting the platform we're currently on. And it's a one-time $5,000 migration fee, but they've agreed to spread that over 3 years. So the support and maintenance of the website stays at the $2,400 annually but they're spreading $1,667 for 3 years to migrate the platform, and there's no, no interest with that. They're just allowing time. They know it's a hardship for towns to pay a one-time $5,000 fee, so they've let us spread it over 3 years.
Right, and we can enter into a 3-year contract, but we can only fund it for a single year in the budget because of the law only lets us fund a single year on those contracts.
Well, it's not a contract. I mean, what would happen is they just shut down our website.
Right,
We'll pay it for 1 year, we'll migrate. If the budget defaults, we won't have that I can't protect that $1,667 in the default budget, so we wouldn't have it. We would either have to go with another company that could do it for $2,400, or we would have to shut down our website.
right. Well, you could transfer it from another line that was available, but anyway, yeah.
What's the need for replacing the phone system?
So the phone system we have right now is fairly archaic. When I came here, my 5 didn't work. I couldn't dial out. And it took them about a month to find a handset because they just don't make our equipment anymore. In the year and a half I've been employed here, we've had to replace a motherboard in the brain of the unit twice. And, he continues to tell us that this equipment is not supported. They're not making any more handsets for this system. They're not, redoing the brains of this and the motherboards and all the pieces that go with it. So it's obsolete equipment. And I'm just really concerned that eventually it's going to break and they aren't going to be able to find the parts and we won't have, how long were we down this time? A day? I mean, we pay support for it and they support us to the best of their ability, but they really have to scramble to find parts and the fact that it has broken twice in a year and a half is very concerning. It's $7,500 to replace it with the company we have now. I will go out and look for other vendors as well to see if I can do any better, but I felt like I had to put a place marker in the budget.
So this isn't a fixed number, this is just an educated guess, probably based on what your technician told you?
I have a rate for this amount from the company we're currently using.
Okay.
But I'm open to looking at other companies if we can do better. I need a new phone system and I don't want to not put enough in the budget to fund that.
Oh, that's
It's
fine.
gonna go up in business.
Didn't have to go up to bid.
So this wouldn't be able to be replaced out of the technology fund? It wouldn't be a
No, I actually,
upgrade from
after the meeting the other night, I pulled a warrant article on the technology fund.
that? Oh, good, yeah.
And the way it's worded, it just says for new technology, but then it lists including software and hardware upgrades. So I think that I think it's not, I mean, we could change the purpose for the technology fund and continue to put money in it, but I think the trustees might have a little bit of problem.
We'll have a little real problem with it.
Yeah, we got 3 of them here on that page, guys. You're gonna release the money for us?
No, let's not have
Well, I mean,
the trustees.
I hadn't looked at the way it was written. I mean, it's technology and upgrades. I mean, it says including those things. I mean, it doesn't say limited to. I mean, it doesn't.
Yeah.
We had the heavy highway capital reserve fund come in, and we were having trouble trying to figure out what heavy equipment was. Well, is it something that you can't lift up by hand, or what? We looked back and looked, and that specified a loader or grader or backhoe, I think. So, I mean, that was pretty clear.
I would feel better if it said up to and including software and hardware, but
Right.
because it just says, that's the only thing it lists out, I just,
No, I understand that. I understand that position. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No,
and
I'm
there's
just
not
curious.
enough money in it anyway, there's like 2,700, 2,750
There's not
in
enough
it,
in it.
there's not enough
Yeah.
to do
And
the phone.
If any line would be affected by it, would be the leaf line for the hardware that we're talking about, a couple of lines up, for 25 yards or no.
Right.
And I'm sure you will, and I hope you will. Because technology changes so fast, I hope you're consulting with other communities to find out what systems they're using and the age of those systems so that we don't create the redundancy of buying something that's going to be antiquated in about 2 years.
Actually, I did that earlier this year. There's a municipal manager's login and some people had put out about that. And this is I'm not against looking at other companies, and if we can get a better price and beat these guys up a little bit about their price, I'm willing to do that. I think we need to get the best price we can and get as much equipment as we can for that price.
Well, technology is evolving pretty fast anyway, so.
That's not a reason to go to a lease, so you can replace it. But my question would be, if we're leasing all of our computer technology now through CCS, is there any need to keep that line, that trust fund open?
The repair and maintenance line item,
No, I'm talking about, you've got the computer equipment and maintenance, you got CCS lease for 25,000 for all the servers and.
oh, you mean the technology?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there is, because CCS does not include the 3 laptops for the selectmen or the 3 laptops that the PD uses.
Okay,
So those will always come out of the tech. So
Okay.
there will be a small amount in there to replace, because this is the year to replace the selectmen's laptops. I don't know if we'll choose to do 3 or 1 or 2 or spread it out, but
Well,
all of our capital improvement for computers is based on a 5-year life cycle.
I haven't seen one of those laptops be flipped out onto a desk in several years, so I'm
Kenny's
wondering.
back.
Well, yeah, he uses it, but
Yeah. The one we had here was so bad, I'm using the spur one we had from the food pantry.
Yeah.
And when you see me at the next meeting,
they're
it's gonna say food pantry on the back.
And that's not an advertisement then?
No, it's not.
Like 5 years
did
old.
you sign it out, Dennis?
Connie is using hers. I don't know why you haven't seen that, but Connie uses hers. And Kenny Paul is using the one that Lino used to use.
Well, this is recent stuff, because I've watched that cable channel there, and I don't see it out there on the desk too often, but it's good to know they're being used.
Yeah.
Any more questions on the general administration line?
Move the 113,549.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. None opposed. Let's see, what time is it? Would this be I think we got through, would this be an all right time to take a 10-minute recess? That would probably last 20 minutes. Because we do that and then, is that okay with everybody?
That's fine, yeah.
The human services, it's human services public assistance, page 2. What's that page? Well, we get all this.
It's the last page,
We get all this supporting information.
very last page.
Right, that's right. I even put a tab on it.
What
I'm
did I
still-
do?
I put a yellow tab on it, and I'm still fumbling around looking for it. That's pretty pathetic. But I should probably do that. Okay, we have the first one is welfare director. Arlene Bush is here for us.
Well,
You can't retire yet. Thanks for coming, Arlene. No, you can't retire.
I guess my question is, why is the salary going up?
So Arlene came to me a month ago maybe and said that she'd like to go down to 2 days a week if she can. And so that would only be 16 hours. We averaged it at 20 because obviously during the transition from October to November when people are, homeless people are living outside, she has a issue with homelessness. Servicing the Christmas programs, the coat drives, obviously those are bigger labor-intensive times for her. I don't want to undercut this. She has waffled about retiring, and she loves what she does. She wants to spend more time at home. She doesn't want to quit, and I don't want to lose her. So accommodating her schedule. I don't have any issue accommodating her schedule. I wouldn't mind putting a few more dollars in that if she wants to work 23, whatever Arlene wants. I'm
He
good
does
with
such a
it.
great job, we're so lucky to have him.
Thank you very much. I'm glad every year people are more educated on the poor and their needs, are the people that
aren't quite so poor, but because of emergencies, they've lost what they have. And they can come into our office without even getting money from general assistance with our resources, and that's why Kelly knows. Kelly also has a background in what I do. And I can pick up the phone and usually call most of the people in the room and be able to outsource these people.
I think the other thing too that I've noticed that you do is you, instead of just trying to get money to solve these problems, you go and use all of the other resources that are available and call around to make, you know, if there's a program, if there's someone there that can help, and I think that probably in the long run saves us a lot of money.
And you know how many people are homeowners that come in and we have to put a lien on them? I have just almost stopped that by getting them involved with other agencies that are it's a short-term emergency. I mean, unless somebody died, I mean, there's a lot of things that happen. But, you know, all the agencies have been great. We've all come together. I rely on Stratford County for a lot. And we have to, this year, we also have to update our guidelines. A lot of things have changed. And that's time consuming. I love my job.
We at the food pantry, we rely on you a lot.
A lot.
All you do for us.
I'm glad I know you realize it because you know that. And a lot of people in this room have met people that have come in. And it's as simple as we work with CAP. They really don't know how to do their application. Or they may not have the money to go and fax it, so I scan it and fax it. And I work very close with these different agencies and get them where they need to be, housing or whatever it has to be.
She also works with the low and moderate income funds for the people in town, which, you know, may turn out to be only $260, but that $260 goes a long way. How do you coordinate that?
Yeah, Kathy Kendall and myself and Howie, and Howie wasn't even using AARP at the time, but it has brought back. I remember somebody getting like $240. They said, what do I have to do with it? I said, do what you want with it. It's your money. And I usually try to talk them into paying towards their taxes.
So you redid the guidelines, or is that something that you?
No, we just made
it.
She just publicized it, and they actually call people to come in.
We used to put it in the paper because service link was a big factor here. That was the other.
That's why you and I got together.
Yes, and they don't get involved as much now, not with us, as they go to the Gibson Center. And I'm trying to recruit them to come back over here because we have people that cannot drive to the Gibson Center. So I'm having a real hard swallow for me, you know, so I'm on the phone and I'm really kind of crabby. Sorry. But our people can't get over there any better than the people over in the Gibson Center area can come over here. If we have a place for them, I want these agencies to be able to set up shop and take care of the people.
I'll move the 44,790.
I happily second that.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
None opposed?
Thank you, Arlene.
Thank you, Arlene, for everything you do. Okay, let's see. General government, Greater Wakefield Resource Center building, it looks like it's coming up next. General government, page 9. Top of the page. Second to the last page in that section. One line at the top of the page.
We don't have any supporting documentation.
I put it in the narrative. They want to hot top the walkway from Main Street to Chapel Street for $2,500, the emergency phone and the elevator for $1,489, fencing, lighting, and security at the rear of the site for $1,500, and then they had miscellaneous $2,500, and the board of selectmen cut that out and just funded it at $5,500.
So they actually put the elevator in without a phone?
I don't know the answer to that, but again, our contract with them says that we'll take care of outside things.
Right.
So I'm not sure that would get funded, honestly, by the board of selectmen, because that's not an outside. Our contract says outside unless it's an emergency. Clearly, if you can budget it, it's not an emergency.
You have to people from the resource center here.
Yep.
Victor and Martha.
On the side conversation, just one The Opera House that they have up there, which is much more magnificent than this one, if I'm not mistaken, have they done anything to renovate that area upstairs?
They've been working on it for some time. I'm sure they can tell you where they are with the renovation.
Victor or Martha, you should come up to the microphone so you can answer some of these questions.
And we also have, we established a capital reserve fund for other
There is a
repairs
capital
down,
reserve fund.
right, down to the maintenance.
Right.
The towns can be responsible for.
I'm not sure what the exact question is. I can explain that the elevator emergency phone is a very specialized piece of equipment inside the elevator mechanics. It's activated by a button on the elevator. It looks just like another one on the floor. The elevator will not pass inspection without that phone being operable. So we think it needs to happen. We're trying to find out why it costs so bloody much.
I think that his question may have been, why would we put in an elevator that, I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't required.
I mean, when we built the house, my mother-in-law was going to live with us, and we had to put an elevator because she couldn't walk. It came with a phone. I mean, it's the same company that put yours in, I believe that. So that's why I'm surprised it didn't come with a phone.
It did.
It just doesn't work.
It's not operating.
Oh, so it's in there, it's just.
It's there, it's just not operating. It's not clear is that the elevator, to us, to the board, is that the elevator is used rather infrequently. Only for when somebody in a wheelchair or on a walker wants to be toured on the second floor to see the progress they're making up there is it used. So it's not like it's being heavily, demanded upon. So it's very unclear to us how this could happen. The elevator is only 5 or 6 years old. So to us it's a mystery. We're still pursuing it, and we're trying to find out more information. We're not being very forthcoming. Except to say that it needs to be fixed.
Okay, so that's the repairs on that.
Where are you in renovation?
We wish we were much further. We have framed out the offices that we project on that floor, which is central to our strategy of raising our operating income. The main electrical system has been installed but not connected to the main building system. That's the last piece of that. Most of the rough plumbing is in for the offices. We have not touched Pikes Hall yet. It is a very, very large project. Virtually nothing has been done on it. There's no electricity in that room at all, no lighting. And we're not even sure the status of the insulation on the exterior wall. So that's a very big project yet to come. In our priorities, we think the offices are a much more important first step in finishing the second floor because they represent direct potential income. We're very interested in doing the hall, which I might not be in breach of my wearing two hats this morning, has a long way to go to match this one. But I think there's a great deal of potential there, and what's fun about it is it's a great deal more authentic, as it were. Backstage, for example, are autographs on the wall of actors from the 20s and 30s, and listing that shows that they're in, and all that kind of stuff, and it's still there intact. So there's lots of wonderful things about it, but the price tag attached to that is at least $500,000 is our best guess. So towards that effort, we have revitalized and are pursuing more grants. We have been in fairly close contact with the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance, who's very enthusiastic about the project and wants to help us, wants to give us grants for half of what is the first step for a serious grant program, which is a historic building assessment. There may have been something done back in the mid-90s when the building was first renovated, but we can't find any record of it, and the company that would have done it, the chief architect and his wife were killed in a car accident first step would be this historic assessment, which most grant organizations want to know that the building indeed is worth saving, that it has potential, that it can be partially restored, partially rejuvenated, or whatever else needs to be done. So they've been very helpful in pushing us along with that. They've also made contacts for the center with LCHIP and have made other recommendations about where we go once we get this first step over.
Thank you, Victor.
I'd add Victor's a great asset to that board with his knowledge.
Well, I know that when he mentioned two hats, he's been responsible for a lot of the upgrades and repairs, and I mean, just for the room we're in now, so I mean.
Yeah, it's nice, you can actually see the documents now.
Yeah, well, it is, yeah. We need to do something with the acoustics, but I mean, we can't, I don't know how to go. Anybody else have questions on the $5,500 for the
Move along.
Second.
motion and second? All in favor? Aye. None opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the work you do. Human Services, page 1, outside agencies. Doesn't need to find. Great. On the top, the first one is the visiting nurses hospice. It's like the request is a little higher than what the selectmen recommended, so I'm sure that the selectmen and the town administrator must have looked into this
Do you want
prior to their recommendation. Yeah.
So, I'm sure that there's somebody here to represent them, but I want to say that the Board of their request was $12,000, which was the same as last year. However, their visits have gone down 18%. And if you look at the bottom of the page, we have a new ask from another VNA, another Visiting Nurses Association that has actually did more visits than this one. So what we did was we upped the amount between the two to $13,000, but we reduced the amount to visiting nurses to $9,000 and funded the new firm that's actually, the new company that's actually doing 1,660 visits. So I know that'll be painful to their organization, but I think that it represents what is actually happening. So part of our people are going to this Central New Hampshire VNA, and then the other 1,660 visits are with Cornerstone VNA, and I think it's only fair that if they're funding our residents that we fund them in some way, and their ask was $4,062, so we split the money between the two, and I'm sure that the gentleman from Central New Hampshire VNA can explain.
Right. Well, I appreciate you looking into that, and because it is pretty important to not pay for to pay for what we're getting, but not overpay.
Well, and
make sure that
those visits were actually down 18% from their visits last year, and I don't know if that is because more people probably went to Cornerstone. We didn't have a request from Cornerstone that I'm aware of in the past, so this is a new request. So, and that's how the selectmen kind of divided it up.
Thank you. Are you here from the hospice visiting?
Yes, I'm David Arkley from Central New Hampshire VNA Hospice. I'm the Chief Financial Officer.
Great. And did you have any presentation for us, or did you?
Absolutely. Well, I'll make a short presentation, and I'll speak to the issue we're just talking about here. Central New Hampshire VNA and Hospice is again requesting level funding of $12,000 from the town of Wakefield to support programs and services. These funds are used to provide care for those that don't have or have inadequate insurance or sufficient private funds, and to cover costs that are not supported by other funding sources. Primarily 3 programs, hospice and palliative care services that are not reimbursed by third-party payers, including bereavement support, volunteer training and placement, and spiritual counseling. Secondly, pediatric care management and maternal child health programs which offers services to families with young children who are considered either socially or medically at risk. For example, issues such as developmental disabilities, premature birth, adolescent parents, alcoholism, and chronic illness. And third, to support general home care services for those who have inadequate or no health insurance. One of the challenges that Central New Hampshire VA and Hospice has been faced in the last few years is the demographic trend. As you're all aware, this part of the state is getting older, there's more need for services, and trying to find a workforce becomes increasingly difficult. As recently as 3 years ago, our average clinical staff, average age of our clinical staff is 58 years old. So we realize that the next 2 to 7 years, we're going to be losing a majority of our clinical staff to retirement. And it's a difficult job to do. It requires people with experience and training because they're out in the home on their own. They're not in a hospital ward or in a doctor's office. So that's the challenges we've been facing. During the last fiscal year, the agency provided 1,440 visits to residents of the town of Wakefield. Yes, that is down from the prior year. The only area that was up was hospice visits, was up a little bit over the prior year. And additionally, our charity care and bad debt amount was up to about $8,800 this past year. Central New Hampshire VA and Hospice is celebrating our 100th year providing services in this part of the state, and we appreciate the support of the town of Wakefield and the opportunity to make this request before your committee.
Thank you. We appreciate the service, and we really do depend a lot on these. I think we've discussed it in the past that, you know, for the amount of money you spend on all of these different agencies, that you have to try and go out and provide the services that are provided, the cost to be astronomical. Anybody have any questions on this first line?
Just so I understand this, the one organization is from southern New Hampshire, and the other one is from the central area up here in Wolfboro area?
Central New Hampshire VA and Hospice is located with offices in Wolfboro and Newtonia.
Yeah, the thing that I'm having difficulty with is just that you've got an organization that's from southern New Hampshire that we are now helping to fund, which probably has a larger base and is much more capable of supporting itself on its own. Therefore, it never requested any funds from us. And here we are throwing some of the funds from an organization who probably has less opportunity, less population to work from. So I'm just kind of torn on that. I mean, you could be forcing the failure of one organization by supporting one that's totally competent of supporting itself due to its population base. That's my thought.
I don't know where Cornerstone DNA is. Okay, where are you located?
Rochester.
Rochester, that's southern New Hampshire. So basically, part of our residents are being serviced from Frisbee Hospital and being referred to Cornerstone, and some of them are going to Huggins and being referred to. So we're not talking about Derry or Salem, we're talking about Rochester.
But you're talking about a 50,000 population base in Rochester versus a 5,000 population base here.
Right.
Or, so I mean, there's a huge difference in the amount of people that are supported.
Right, and they're servicing 1,660 visits, and they've never gotten any funding from us before.
Understood, and I've dealt with those folks before from Cornerstone. They're a wonderful bunch of people. I'm not questioning that. I'm questioning the fact that we are taking finances from an organization who has less funding in an area because of the less population to support an organization who wasn't even requesting anything.
They did request $4,062.
Okay, well, in the prior years from what I heard of the conversation.
Well, you can bump them
which
back
is an
to
economical, which has an economic base that can more support their business. So
Right. You're the budget committee.
And I think that what the selectmen said was that paying for services, I mean, if the services that you're receiving are down almost 20%, and it costs you the same amount of money, I think is what their question was, and that, possibly is being transferred over to the, maybe it's being picked up by the other one, but I mean, if you look at the next page where the supporting information is, it shows that the calls last year, 2017, was $1,758, and 2018 is $1,440. $1,440. The
get all that, Jay. All I'm trying to say is, it's like Walmart moving into an area and competing with the small guy. Eventually, that small guy's gonna lose the business and go out of business, and are you really doing justice to the area by supporting the bigger outfit?
Okay, so I mean, I think the question is taken. I mean, do you want to make a motion to, increase the selectmen's, recommendation? Or, I mean, so.
Can I have a minute, Jerry?
Yes.
What we're trying to do as selectmen is to provide the organizations that support our citizens. And if you look up at the visiting, the count is down there. Okay, we're still supporting them, but the visits are down. The visits are up at Cornerstone. I don't want this town to be accused of not supporting the organizations that take care of our citizens. If one organization is going down, it's not our fault. We didn't do that. Selectmen didn't do that. You didn't do that. One organization's going down, the other one's going up. We want to provide these organizations with the money that they deserve for taking care of our citizens.
And that's why I said I was torn about this, Dennis, because I understand.
I understand, Pete, but it's not like we're attacking one service group over another one. We said who's servicing individuals in town, and we want to support them.
Right. I get it, Dennis. I'm just torn with that.
Okay.
Anybody else have any comments or questions on this particular line for the selectmen's recommendation of $9,000?
Move the line.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Is that the $9,000?
Yes.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Right here.
What's that?
One opposed.
One opposed. Thank you very much for coming out. We appreciate it. The next line is Ossipee Concerned Citizens. Is there anybody here from that group? Well, let's see. We had appropriated $13,518 previously. They selected and accepted their recommendation for $15,012 for this year. So
We're up 83 meals a month.
sorry.
Is this Meals on Wheels?
Yes.
Just like that.
I'll move the line.
Second. Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Starting Point. Anybody here from Starting Point? Yeah, right there. There we go. And the selectmen recommendation is the same as theirs for $3,291. I think that the supporting information for these goes right along with, it's in the same sequence as the way they're presented. Our secretary is amazingly efficient in that manner. So, thank you.
If there's time for me to just take a minute, first of all, to thank you. I haven't been here before, so I would love to tell you a little bit about our services because they've extended. Is that good? Okay. So Starting Point's been around for almost 40 years, servicing victims and survivors of domestic and sexual violence, stalking, and human trafficking in Carroll County. We have offices in Conway and Huggins Hospital and a shelter with a capacity for 13 victims and children. If our shelter is full, we provide hotel sheltering for all Carroll County victims until we can get them into another shelter. All services are free and confidential and include a 24/7, 365 days a year crisis intervention. We respond to calls within 5 minutes. Shelter, transportation, child advocacy, court and hospital accompaniment, personal advocacy, transitional services, prevention, outreach, and a Housing First program. Starting Point has professional response protocol with many county partners, including both county courts, Memorial and Huggins Hospital, county health centers, all police departments, all county schools, and both colleges, the Children's Advocacy Center, DCYF, DHHS, and many others. One example of our partnerships is the Lab Call, which is a lethal assessment program in which we support victims and our law enforcement. When an officer is on the scene of a domestic violence, a Starting Point advocate is called, and the Bureau of Criminal Justice has indicated that this joint effort has reduced incidents of domestic violence. Not only does this program help to break the cycle of violence, it helps to protect our law enforcement because DV calls are the most dangerous calls for our police to respond to. According to state statistics, more than 14,000 residents in Carroll County will or have experienced domestic or sexual violence in their lifetime. With each one of those victims having family, friends, and colleagues who are also affected by their victimization, I think it's fair to say we're all affected. Crisis intervention is the first step Starting Point takes to support victims of domestic and sexual violence, but it is the work that we do after the incident that helps to break the cycle and turn victims into survivors. Both crisis intervention and long-term support are costly. So last year, Starting Point provided services to 27 victims from Wakefield, with each victim requiring up to 11 services. These numbers do not include second homeowners in Wakefield or the tourists that we also assist from here. The cost of those services to Starting Point for 2017 was more than $35,000, and at this time we are asking for $3,291. It's our hope that with increased support from our community, we can reduce the incidence of violence and make Carroll County a place where we can all live free of domestic and sexual violence. And I just want to say that we are trying to support Arlene's hybrid retirement with our housing program. She often gives us a call so we can, any person that screens into Starting Point services are then provided services by us, not the town, and about 75% of our homeless population screen into Starting Point's services. So thank you for your past support and hope you'll continue to support us.
Thank you for that. Now, did you say you could shelter 13 people?
We have a shelter that provides for 13 victims and their children, but if our shelter is full, then we provide sometimes hospital, unfortunately, but hotel accommodations, and we work with any client that calls for shelter to get them to another state shelter if we can.
It's amazing to me, if you look at the numbers, out of all the towns in Carroll County, we're the fourth highest.
I was going to look, but I didn't. I wanted to listen, and I didn't want to be rude.
The 27 victims that we serviced here in Wakefield did not include those who have second homes or live in the campgrounds or come through Wakefield, because our data reports back to the town that they originated from.
The ones they came from.
So it's a lot more.
Were there many of the second homes?
Yes. There's more than 27. And I think it was 2 years ago, I had a client from Wakefield, a young mother with 2 children. It cost the agency $2,200 to get her to safety. So that's just one of the clients, and I think he had 39 that year.
It's great work you do.
Arlene, did you have anything to add? You probably worked with them before.
No, not really, but I hope when I was talking about it, I did not say Starting Point, because I would have service line, as far as I'm trying to get them here. No, everything once they leave me or have me to call, I have them call from my office. Everything becomes confidential.
Oh, okay.
The towns cannot be involved at that point, and we know that it will come with, because they have that confidentiality, especially when there's been domestic violence.
Right.
And a lot of these people coming out of the woods, coming from the tree, wherever they're coming from. A lot of times they might have called me, or they might have called my partner, and we get them, give them the number, have them call.
Right.
And then we very, very seldom hear from any of those people again. I don't know where they've gone, what they've done, but they have been taken care of by our way.
This is one of the resources that you use, though. I mean, obviously, so.
I think there's numerous, and so hard they remember them all.
Right. Yeah. Thanks.
Great service. I'll move to 3291.
A second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out.
Jerry, can we ask Holly to explain how come Huggins, that bridge went away? I mean, I thought that was excellent.
Let's do that. Let's put Howie on the hot seat. Just
because they happen to be a
Just because
trustee
you're here.
of ours.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll use you.
We've got a grant, he's got a grant, plus the Affordable Care Act changed some of the funding methodology for low and moderate income to get drug cheaper.
So those people are being taken care
Still
of?
being serviced,
Yes.
but they just don't need to come to the town.
Right.
If you remember, I think there's only about $100 a month, a year you have to pay. So.
107.
So.
But I mean, still, it's nice. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like,
It's
it's
still
nice
being
that
serviced.
they came up and said that we don't need that, you know, we don't need that money anymore, so I mean.
No, so it's still being serviced, it's true.
Okay, thank you.
The funding mechanism has changed.
Okay.
May I add something to this? I talked to Huggins, and they thanked me again, but they said, we're fine. But they're doing more than just medication.
Yes.
They're helping with the new open season. And said their grant is still taking them through it, so
Yeah.
I didn't want to bring it up.
Gentleman that runs this piece of work is really good.
Well, thanks for that explanation, Howie, on that. Any, we can move down to Tri-County cap now.
What about the human services?
I'm sorry?
No, human services.
Oh, okay, I skipped that, I'm sorry. Whoops.
I saw her sitting there, so I knew.
Wow, I don't know what, I made a mistake, and I did it right in front of everybody, right here.
You missed us.
So it's probably on Facebook. I'm never gonna be at the end of it. Oh, God.
So I'm Eve Claus, I'm the Behavioral Health Director, Northern Human Services representing Carroll County. Again, thank you. It's always a pleasure to come to Wakefield. You are the kindest of the towns that we go to in terms of, and I see that reflected in how you treat all of the human services. There's never a negative comment, and I really appreciate that. I also appreciate your concern about supporting the existing agencies. I think people don't realize that everything that we do is in hindsight. I think you do know that, but we're looking in hindsight, and I think of, the aging population in Carroll County is huge. It's our significant population. So a lot of people are going to be leaving us, and the VNA hospice services, wherever they come from, are really important. So the other thing that I wanted to say, which is a little bit preaching, and it speaks to the medication bridge issue, we need to continue to support the entitlements that we've all paid into. So when I hear rhetoric about taking away Medicaid, taking away Medicare, taking away those sorts of programs, those are the programs that, in the case of Medication Bridge, are now covering the prescriptions, and those are enhanced programs as a result of the Affordable Care Act. So I just wanted to say that they also help our services, our ability to serve people, for instance, with substance misuse disorder, have increased as a result of the enhanced Medicaid, which New Hampshire chose to put in place. And therefore, we are able to serve more people with substance use disorders. As far as our ask for Wakefield is concerned, we're continuing to ask for level funding. We feel that we want the towns to be able to continue to support all the human services. In Wakefield this year, we supported 104 uninsured or underinsured, and those people still exist, people from the town of Wakefield, for a total of 406.5 hours. Our cost for these services was $61,771. So that's our match, basically, to your 4,300. A good thing that's happening in Carroll County is we were awarded the administration of the drug treatment court. So we now have a drug treatment court in Carroll County and in Coos County, which Northern Human Services administers. We have a full drug court team, and we are servicing people, basically the highest, most difficult people with both felony convictions and addiction problems. And that is going very well. We're almost 3/4 of the year into it. So again, I thank you. There's a lot going on. I'm also going to give you, I've never done this before, but I'm going to give you a copy of our annual report. I don't have one.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Which kind of goes over what all the programs in Northern are over the 3 counties, not just Carroll, but our involvement in Carroll County is pretty well explained there for all the programs that we're not asking for funding for.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions on this line?
Great.
So we have a motion.
I make a motion.
I believe made a motion, so.
Okay, sorry.
I think you did, right, David? Motion second. We all in favor? Aye. Tri-County CAP. All right.
sending you this year. Fuel assistance office, I'll keep it short, I know you got lots of people.
Oh, buddy, no, that's fine, we appreciate you coming out, so.
We have 108 households. I can break them down for you to be how many elderly disabled, but I would like to tell you a little exciting things that are happening this year. We have already, last year we had about 1,700 clients or so for the whole entire county. Already this year we have entered 1,000 clients. I have 90 more to go. I've been working a few weekends because we go a lot through the mail now. We've got to become a little more flexible. It used to be you had to come in person, which is a hardship for a lot of people. So now they can mail it, fax it, drop it off. We work with Arlene. She faxes it to us sometimes if somebody's in our office. We have another 300 plus. I look on Thursday, so they might have more now applications out to people in the mail. So if those all come back in the next month or so, that'll be 1,300 of, more than half of what we did last year already before the season's even opened. The last 2 years, the season's opened early. Instead of being December 1st, it opened in the middle of November. And it looks like the state's going to do that again this year, which will help people know what their benefit's going to be before the program really gets cranking like it used to. So as you know, it's cold down. People want to know what they're going to get and what they can use. Last year, they did the supplemental benefit where they gave a little bit of money extra at the end of the season. So somebody who got a benefit, say $500 at the beginning of the fuel season, the state kind of watches to see if the federal dollars we received, if there'll be any of those left in their budget. And what they did they usually do a couple of things. First, they raised the income guidelines. So people who would normally be over by $50 or $100 now will be enrolled. And then what they did is they gave an additional benefit to people, which was about half of what they got. So if they got $500, they gave an additional $250, which really helped. This year, going out of the chute, they're going to keep the guidelines at the 60% median, so those households won't have to be denied when they reapply. So the guidelines are a little higher. And the additional funds that they had, they're just going to give you that amount of money right out the chute. So somebody last year who might qualify for $500 could get $700. We don't get the $700. So because the state had a little money left in their budget so they gave that back. They're going to increase, they made those changes. Statewide, the fuel funds have been, clients applying have been down over the last few years, and what we've gotten federal has levelly been about the same. It could be economy's better or whatever's better, but we're still trying to find where those households went. So it hasn't affected us too much in Carroll County. I mean, we keep our numbers right around the same. I think once when the first fuel prices went crazy, we got all the way to 2,800, clients one year, and we'd like to know where they went. I mean, some moved away, obviously, and some clients pass away over time and those type of things. But they're also now we become fiscally more responsible, so now we're going to start trying to go out to the community a little bit more, like we used to be able to. We used to come to Wakefield 1 day a week. Now they're saying, working with us and say if you'd like to go out and see if you could reach some more people in your area. So I was just talking to the lady about maybe going down to the senior center and reaching out to some of the participants. I was just going to say the food pantry. They said give us some ideas, and if I can let the main office know, I think that's going to help. That will help. My goal would be that nobody ever came to Arlene for help for fuel. It might be unrealistic. Some people wait till the last minute, but I know in Conway, BJ told me that last year she spent $0 in fuel, and that's our highest one. And possibly when I was sitting there with Sam for the time, she had spent that. And so I was very excited because that means we're reaching out to enough people early enough in the season to prevent those emergency type of things.
Not only adding to or helping people with their fuel expenditures, does the program have any source of helping people fix the problem that maybe there may be some energy loss?
Yes,
so that they have less need the next year?
We do. We have the weatherization program, and anybody who's interested, during the application process, we ask them if they're interested in signing up for the weatherization, and that's just as simple as checking yes on the box if they are. There is a long wait list, and federal dollars have gone up and down on supporting that program, but I believe through the electric program over the years, which is also another program that we administer, the statewide electric discount program, which gives people between 7% and 70% off their electric bill each month year-round for a year. And if you're over 65, it goes 2 years. So that really helps reduce some of them. And I don't know, that's probably made a big difference in the amount of disconnect notices we see. I mean, we still see them, but not as bad as they used to be, But conservation, I'd like to see a lot more money put into that, but it's just what the, to the state, they decide what they're gonna do, you know, so much percentage is going here, so much is going there, and that's, you know, really up to them. But we do educate people about, you know, how to save money here and there, and how to budget. A lot of times people don't understand that if they're on a fixed income or Social Security, they get the fuel assistance of $600, but if you continue to give your fuel vendor $50 or $25 each month, you would have enough for him to deliver. So it's really helping people, educate them a little bit on how to budget a little better.
So you're helping people to budget?
Yes.
Not
Oh, yeah, that's one of the big
into
parts, you know, how to become not an emergency. Because every time you're an emergency, they don't realize, I mean, it's fixing their problem right then, but they're wasting a lot of their money too. Because some companies will charge you $75 or $100 to come out. If you've got propane, they're gonna charge you a relight fee, you know, plus the emergency fee. And it doesn't seem like a big deal if you're getting $1,000 benefit, but if you're losing $250 of that money right out of a chunk just to have an emergency come out and get you started again, it is a big deal because that's another tank of fuel down the road.
So you don't probably work with a lot of people in June and July when it's warm out. I mean, you have them come in and
The electric discount goes year round, and actually the fuel assistance ends April 30th, but we start making our address list and start contacting people in June because we can do elderly, disabled, kids 5 and under, people with wood, and anybody who was an emergency last year, we can start doing them in July. So from July and August, we're doing everybody, all of that group to try to get them in, you know, early, so they're not an emergency in the fall.
Right.
And we do have a few emergencies that we contact 4, 5, 6 times, and they still wait till fall, you know, but that's just the way it goes. You can't change that pattern. Some people live in constant chaos. But you do the best you can. You try to get that, give them the tools, mail them an application, even if they haven't asked for it, just try to get them to do what's best for themselves.
The 325 citizens, are you counting the number of people in the home, or is that number of homes? What is that?
That's the individuals. So
That's
like,
individual.
yes.
You know how many households it is?
The total households for your area was 180. And of those, 50 were elderly, considered 60 or older.
Okay.
91 were handicapped, which meant they had to have somebody getting Social Security disability. And 20 of them had a child that were, you know, under the age of 5.
Okay.
So all the rest would be everybody else that fell into that category.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions on the $6,000 that the selectmen recommended?
Line?
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. No, appreciate it. Greater Wakefield Resource Center. Victor, you're up again.
You gotta switch hats.
Good to see you again.
Yes. How have you been?
Basically, the Resource Center is requesting the continuation of the support you gave us last year with the restoration of the support for the Meals on Wheels program. It was reduced last year at this time amongst discussion about the possibility of moving some or all of the Meals on Wheels operation out of the Resource Center and to the town. The result of those discussions, which there were a number, was only that the center would no longer retain the confidential records of any of the clients, only the contact information. So that resolved one of Arlene's and one of the state's concerns about that program. I'd like to introduce Marcia Borsch, who's the administrator of the Resource Center, to give you a little bit of detail about the Meals on Wheels program, which I don't know very much about.
Well, I sure do. So it's a great service that we provide in this community, and it is very time consuming to organize drivers and to have drivers. We always have a need for drivers, just throw that out there. But we service about 31 folks right now. We have 3 routes, and it's a very busy program, and it's a challenge, and it does take a lot of my time, I will say that. But we've resolved one issue with Arlene so that I no longer keep all the confidential information. Just the first page with the basic information and an emergency contact number. But I guess that's about it.
Great, thanks. I remember, well, Liz did a lot, Liz Olympio did a lot down there. She was always in trying to recruit drivers for the Meals on Wheels program.
They try to recruit them, now, in fact, Martha sent me a thing to put on my page looking for drivers.
Oh, yeah.
For the year.
30,500.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank
Thank
you very
you.
much.
Thank you.
See you up here, Victor.
I'll let him sit down. Wakefield projects, but, and then, yeah, so, yes.
We're requesting that we go back to our normal level of support from the town of $10,000. As you may recall, last year we reduced it significantly because the WPI had come to the conclusion that there were few, if any, larger projects left to complete that were manageable, and therefore it didn't seem fair to the town or logical to us to continue to get town support when it was not needed. So it was, the 10,000 last year was reduced to 1,000, merely to keep us on the records, I guess, or whatever you call that. This year we've looked very carefully at the situation and have recently submitted to Kelly, en route to the selectmen, a proposal for a project upwards of $750,000 for the addition of a fire stair on the east side of the town hall, side facing the Lake Food Center, to get adequate and code compliant exiting from the stage on the second floor and from the east end of the main floor, which used to be an exit with that old wooden staircase, if you remember. So this tower, this stair tower, would connect all three floors, provide both emergency exits, but also would provide continuity between the floors. It's a preliminary proposal, the first stage of which was for us to discuss it and get Kelly's reaction. And the second draft, if there were a second draft, would then go to the selectmen for their consideration. It would be a large project, it would be a multi-year project. We are anticipating it to be funded in from a variety of sources. First of all, there would be a reasonable amount of cash on hand from WPI. There would be WPI's continued work to raising grants, and that's what the $10,000 we're requesting this year would go for. And there would be WPI's pledge to operate a capital campaign, a public capital campaign for some portion of the amount, and then for the town to use warrant articles or other budgetary means to produce the rest. If that proposal moves forward, then we would need that $10,000 to do the grant work necessary to fund that component. If for whatever reason, and there could be many, that proposal is either significantly delayed or rejected entirely, then we would simply not request that money be actually distributed.
Thank you very much, Victor, for that. Yeah, I mean, for a long time, I realize we've got sprinklers in the building and everything now, but I mean, for a long time, I've wondered how we've gotten away with not having any egress from the building in the back there. I mean, anybody from this point back in the town hall would pretty much be trapped if there's, in the event of a fire, so.
It's been considered for a long time. It's on the proposal that we made is based on 2007 Salmon Falls architecture drawings, which lay it out completely. So it's part of Paul Gosling's vision for a safe and historically respectful building.
I think that's just beautiful.
Victor, what's the officer's liability insurance for? Am I reading the right line here? In your description over here, it says officer's liability insurance.
Yes, it's one of our operating expenses.
Yeah, what is that? Can you explain that for the public?
What we have for the description, it says grant writing for new project, office supplies, officer's liability insurance. I think
we've been advised legally that the advice that we give the town, which has been thankfully and happily almost 100% accepted over the course of now over 10 years, that if that advice turned out to be erroneous or problem causing, that we would be liable for whatever costs there were of that.
So this is like an errors and omissions kind of insurance?
Directors and officers.
Okay.
So if for some reason something happened, they could go back against WPI as an entity and the board individually.
Okay.
So that's what it protects.
The town has been quite dependent on us to act almost as construction managers when we have reasonable sized projects like the sprinkler system, like the integration of the stage and auditorium lighting, like the fire alarm systems that have been added to the building.
Mm-hmm.
We make the recommendation, the administrator and the selectmen approve it, but it's unrealistic to expect that they could follow all the details in the actual installation, the precise design and installation and operation of that stuff. So we end up working very closely with the architect, very closely with the contractors to do that. And it's the legal view that puts us very much at liable.
Thank you very much.
Wow. That's some pretty strange connection to the liability to go all the way back to someone just giving you.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask, so the public would understand that better as well as myself.
No unusual.
Priscilla?
When you met with us with the CIP committee, I had in the narrative that I was waiting to hear from Victor on the town hall project. Now, it sounds to me I should put that project you're talking about under the long-term items to be considered.
Well, I think it would be only fair to let it get at least one or two preliminary approvals. At the moment, it's only a proposal.
So we'll wait until next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seems,
I haven't even had a chance to present it to the Board of Selectmen, and we haven't started on warrant articles. The request is $660,000 for the addition, and Victor suggested funding $100,000 in a capital reserve, opening a capital reserve funding this year. But as you know, we have significant bridge needs, and so the Selectmen haven't even had a chance to look at that yet. We haven't had a meeting, and I think it's only fair to let them weigh in on it before. I don't have an opinion. I'm not going to take that to the CIP. That would be.
Good, Denny will let me know what transpires with the selectmen.
Anybody have any more questions for Victor?
Approve the $10,000.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Nobody opposed? Thanks, Victor.
Think it done, Richard.
You're not going to Wakefield Watershed Alliance. Oh, that's right, it's the way you sat down. Good morning or afternoon? Morning.
Morning, thank you. Hi, I'm John Samuelson. I'm the treasurer of the Acton Wakefield Watershed Alliance. First off, I want to thank you for the town's support to AWA and the programs we do, supporting the lakes and lake water quality, et cetera. We are asking for level funding again, similar to the last 4 years. And I believe you guys are aware of what we do. I can expand upon it if anybody has any questions, but we've been around for a while.
I think we've had you guys in a lot, and you've worked a lot in the town, and Linda certainly, and the rest of the team have given us a lot of information. I think everybody appreciates the vital service that you guys are providing. I mean, to try and preserve the lakes. We got a lot of lake dwellers sitting here that always appreciate it.
What are your expenditures to date? It's not, most everybody has that listed. I don't see it listed here.
Are year-to-date expenditures?
Yeah, is it the 30,000 even every year? It just comes out that way? It says expenditures to date, one of the columns here, for 2018. I'm just wondering what you've spent to date.
I don't have that year-to-date expenditure with me right now.
Okay.
It varies quite a bit every year. On timing, the grants that we get through New Hampshire and Maine to install fixes on roads, etc., we get the funding a lot up front, but the spending happens later in years, and it goes between years, but it all gets spent. Right now, I would say our expenditures so far this year are someplace in the neighborhood of around 70,000 year-to-date.
So we
I
only
think we got some,
But you're only,
we fund
I'm not sure if
15,000
exactly
we
what
got
it
some
is.
information on that.
We're funding 30, aren't we?
No, we funded 15.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm reading.
And we paid over the 15.
Yeah,
They get many other
Yes.
funding sources than what we provide.
Right.
Right, no, I understand. I just thought that all the 15s, and actually I was looking above there, all the 30s, but 15s were dead even, and I thought that's unusual if that's what you're budgeting, and to date, we're starting into the year, you're already at that mark.
No, the 15 that's utilized throughout.
Puts in a pool.
Yeah, it's utilized throughout the year. Helps support our licensing program where we hire the local kids and pay them salary to go around to the different homeowners, et cetera, and install best management practices to keep erosion from getting into the lakes.
Okay.
They also have, I can speak that they also help coordinate the lake close program that are used in most of our lakes, which has turned out really good to protect the lakes.
Back in the Wakefield Watershed Alliance did send us some financial information. 119 cash on hand was 34,000, looks like 659. Cash in said 124,342. See, 2019 budget forecast. Do you have?
Yeah, so you should have all received a package when it dropped off. This is our forecast for what we think we're going to end the year 2018 as compared to what we're budgeting for 2019.
Right.
For all intents and purposes in all categories, we typically budget what we do in the previous year unless we know some significant changes.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest swing you'll ever see is what we have in here is public grants and the money coming in, like I said, with New Hampshire and Maine for the grants that you get through 319 programs, that money comes in up front and then we spend in the other years. But combined between the years, it all balances out. So we'll also see a big favor in the expense items that basically offsets that lost income. We're budgeting, we're forecasting, and we're budgeting. We're forecasting this year and budgeting next year to lose money. We are supposed to break even. We're a nonprofit. However, we do have more. We're projecting to come in higher with cash at the end of this year. Again, due to some of that time when how the money's flow. And we came into 2018 with more money in the bank than we typically need. We usually like to have a fund of about 20 to 30,000 going into the year. That carries us through the early part of the year until we get into the summer, when we get more of the donations from the summer residents that are in the area, et cetera, et cetera. So
the various lakes and so forth.
Does Acton make a comparable
Acton
donation?
Yeah, Acton donates 10,000 a year to us. We do a lot more in Wakefield than we do in Acton. It's a lot of water. We got a lot of water bodies.
I don't know, is there 7 or is there 11? Is there an official count on that? Howie, what's the official count? How many lakes do we have? 7 or 11?
Well, if you talk to Wayne Robinson, we get 8. I
Oh, let's wait. You have 7 or 11 off 8, okay.
I tell you, for a town that has this many lakes, we're lucky to have this organization.
And I should point out, one of the things that, I don't know if everybody else caught it in the numbers, we heard previously at the library that they lost the funding of the Alden Young.
Yes.
As did Acton.
Oh, you did?
Watershed too.
Yeah,
that was a big source of income.
It was. We had budgeted, even though in the private grants we had budgeted flat year on year, that's because we applied to a New Hampshire Charitable Foundations grant for the same amount that we're losing in the Alden Young Fund. So, but we also found out that Alden's not going to cover our rent at the Greater Wakefield offices, so we got to come up with some more money that we didn't know we needed to come up with. But
You charge for any of your services?
I'm sorry?
Do you charge for any of your services?
We don't. Well, we do what we don't. We ask for donations from for people that do the YCC crew things that, but other than that, we don't charge services. We basically collect donations from lake owners around our lakes, etc. So we don't have a lot of service charges for our time.
Most of the lake associations, people fund.
All the lake associations contribute to us as well every year or so.
What I would think as a minimum to the landowner, you would say, you got to pay for the materials.
Well, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, so when we do projects, if they do
I don't have a place on the lake, so I don't know.
If we do a YCC project on a property, the landowner pays for the materials. We supply the labor with the kids. However, we strongly recommend an amount to donate. Most donate at least that much, if not more.
Now, the public works director was in here the other night, and he was talking about, I know years ago, because I designed a few of these systems, we used to use the old processed glass for stormwater management, for maybe a drip edge around the house or whatever. You folks incorporating that? Is that something that you need to be in communication with? You're still doing it, or aren't you? Or?
Yeah, we still do all of that. The drip edges, we have a
right, but they used glass as a source of material.
Oh, that's what we do now. There's no glass used.
I think Dave had a question.
No, not a question, but I just had a comment, is I don't think people generally are aware on how far our outreach is. They have multiple programs in schools in multiple towns, and I witnessed their robotics program came to our water plant, and through the winter they built these sea perch things which are underwater robots, and utilizing our beautiful clear Great East Lake water, 2 bus loads of kids came, put these obstacle courses underwater, and operated these robotic things doing tasks. And this has got nothing to do with erosion. It's got to do with future generations of young people from Wakefield. And I saw a kid just jumping up and down with enthusiasm while he was doing this. They were learning about robotics. And kind of the side note was, gee, isn't it wonderful to have clear water? Because you couldn't do this. You couldn't see what you were doing without this clear water. So this is very subtle in the background.
That was the 8th grade program we introduced, was the Sea Perch program. We also do programs for 4th, 6th, 7th grades as well. School programs to teach them about water and water, not necessarily just erosion, like Dave's mentioning. We appreciate you allowing us to use the document, et cetera, there, but it is to try to educate the young kids about water and water quality, what it means, and how they impact it, and how we all impact the lakes around here. I mean, the lakes, any lake, without human intervention, would survive billions of years. I mean, they're all going to turn to swamps eventually. The time frame for when they go to swamps is vastly impacted because of development. If nobody ever developed around the lakes, like I said, they've lasted billions of years. But as soon as you start building, as soon as erosion goes in, weeds start proliferating because there's too much phosphorus in the lakes, et cetera, and then you get cyano blooms like we do at Province Lake, and it becomes pretty hard to manage. So we're trying to do everything we can to try to fix some of that and improve the quality if we can.
I think Great East will last longer than Province Lake, because Great East is almost 100 feet deep, and Province Lake is 4 feet deep, but it's not late all. I really appreciate that presentation. Does anybody else have any questions on the move the line? Second motion and second. All in favor? Aye. None opposed? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Usually we have one. White Horse Addiction Center.
From the last year, first day.
Right, yep.
I see the name of the paperwork, the new good things they're doing, so.
Yes.
I'm surprised they're not here, but they did have a management change in the last couple of months, and they're trying to get things changed around. But I've sent people there, I work with them quite often, and they're so survives.
I will speak about they're an asset for what they do offer us.
Right. I think they get some pretty good information they sent us in our packets too. Dedicated to providing residential and outpatient drug and alcohol recovery center programs in Carroll County. They are asking for $2,500, and the selectmen recommended $2,500.
Move along.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed.
Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you, Ron. This is my favorite, CASA. $750 they come in, and I mean, they do a great job. I know people that volunteer there, and yeah, I don't think they ask for enough money for the amount services that they provide to children. And Janet still with them.
What'd you say?
I said, is Janet's still working with Tasha?
No,
No?
she resigned a couple of years ago, and it's not that she didn't love the organization, but she's starting to lose her hearing, and she's supposed to report on what's going on. and the lawyers would be facing away from her, and she couldn't hear what they said. She had to give it up because of her.
We're all heading down that road.
But she absolutely loves us, and we still donate to the organization.
Move the line.
Second. It's a great organization. Motion a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Wakefield Food Pantry, is that you, Robert?
That's me. And I gotta apologize, if you look at the letter I sent, I had a comma instead of a period.
Oh, jeez. Well, I don't know. I'd like to make a motion to reduce that line to $1, just to keep it open.
Yeah, our numbers through June were down 0.72. But I will qualify that by saying, on the exhibit I sent you, look at the over 60 quote we've had in the first 6 months of this year compared to last year. It's over 50% increase. That people over 60 needing our help. Some of that I will mention to you is because, as you remember, last year we had added Milton to our population that we serve. So we're now up to 5 communities. We also added Newfield, Maine. But interestingly enough, since we're about flat, stop and think about that. We have 43 families from Milton we serve, not every week, but 43. But our numbers overall are about the same in total. So we lose people from Wakefield, we lose people from Brookfield. But overall, we're down 0.72. Our funding is good. I do request money from every town we serve, and every town we serve has given us money. So our request is flat. And again, for those of you who are new on the board, we target the monies from the towns to equal our non-food expenditures. And the reason we do that is, so if I'm sitting in church and the minister says, give to the food pantry, you can honestly say that the minister or the priest can honestly say, it all goes to food. Because the towns are paying for our overhead, heat, light, propane, and so on. So, and it's worked out so far, we're going to try to keep it at that level of funding. So, any questions?
I think that's a good policy too, to do that, because the Red Cross got into a little bit of hot water by taking donations. People thought it
for services that work.
Yeah.
I want to mention too that they have often, I use the food pantry Janet's office quite often to grab the people that can't go to 2 places and just grab them all. So that's the food pantry.
She uses our office quite frequently to address issues with some of our clients.
Right. And a lot of that, well, I mean, it's convenient, but
privacy.
Confidentiality too. I mean, so.
Well, that's why I hope Lisa will come down, and you and I need to follow up with her. So, to get her down for the heat assistance.
Make a motion to that go on.
Second.
Motion a second, all in favor? Aye. Thanks, Holly.
Well, I should say we have 2 more board members sitting on the budget committee.
Yes. Oh, you do?
Yeah, Elizabeth's our treasurer.
Okay.
Elizabeth's the treasurer.
Oh, okay.
And Denny's on.
Oh, there you go. Crossroads House. Emergency and transitional shelter. See attached letter.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Just checking. The sun is trying to make its appearance.
I know, I'm getting ready.
It will be glowing in the sky.
I'm getting ready to go. I see the sun coming up.
So good morning, I'm Martha Stone, I'm the Executive Director of Crossroads House. I was here, I've been here a couple of times. For those of you who may not be familiar with us, we are one of the largest emergency shelter providers in the state. We're definitely the largest in our region on the seacoast, and we serve all of Stratford County as well, and obviously overlapping in this region as well. our numbers are up. Last year, if you remember, we had an extreme cold weather snap, and in Stratford County there was a pop-up warming shelter. But even with that additional assistance in the community, we had record-breaking numbers at our shelter and ended up bunking our beds to create more capacity, to be able to literally just get people in and out of the cold as life-saving services. Year-round, we have a host of wraparound services in addition to providing safe shelter and 3 meals a day, case management, and lots of collaboration with all of our partner agencies to meet the needs of people, both individuals and families experiencing homelessness. We had, last year was 527 people that came through and that we served in our shelter. Now, among those, we did have, we count bed nights. That's one of our measurements, how many total bed nights. We had over 38,000 bed nights of shelter provided. 202 of those bed nights were from 2 residents from Wakefield, and that was not in your letter, so I just wanted to share that with you. You know, I feel like, and Arlene has been great to work with, we act as a resource. An emergency shelter is something that's like an insurance policy for a community that doesn't have a shelter in their town. So if there are people in your community who need assistance, that's something that we can provide. So I could talk all day about the programs, but I know you've got a lot on your agenda, so I open it up for questions that you may have about what we do, how we do it. Yes?
I just wanted to remind you that you haven't requested.
I was going to do the same thing.
Now, it's just a word of warning. When this board meets and we listen to the presentation and allocate money to somebody, if they don't take the money, and next year
they're not going to get it. Absolutely, message received. Yeah, we apply for funding from a multitude of cities and towns, and every town does it and city does it a little differently. We keep a spreadsheet of who requires us once it's allocated to then go back and request it. So I apologize that that didn't happen. It'll be the first thing Monday morning we send that in. It's tricky for us because the process is different, and so we sometimes don't know if the money's been allocated, and we ought to just send the letters one way or the other. But thank you for letting me know that. I can attest to the fact that the need is tremendous. Our funding, our budget is $1.7 million this year, and we have to fundraise the majority of that. So we go to the communities, the cities and towns that we serve. We do get some state funding that has been level forever, and a small amount of federal, but we rely very heavily on fundraising. So the last thing we want to do is leave money on the table.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Move the line.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much for your support. And
Thank
see, more sunshine.
Thank you.
Thank
You for coming in, we appreciate it. Children Unlimited, Family Support served 5 Wakefield families in 2018. Good morning.
Hi, I'm Artistiana, the Executive Director of Children Unlimited. I'm banking on Easting. It's really easygoing and easy to talk to. I took over Children Unlimited in July, so this is my second. We went to Wolfboro in October, so this is my second time going through.
So how do you like it? You look a little nervous.
I'm really nervous.
Really, how easy it was for everybody ahead of you, I mean.
But there's like, filming going on.
Easy-going people, I mean.
I've actually been at Children Unlimited for 21 years. I'm an occupational therapist and worked as an occupational therapist and headed our early intervention, and then was assistant director last year. But Joanne Kelly, who was the director, spared me from all these meetings last year, said, "You can do it starting next year." So Children Unlimited is a community-based private nonprofit in Conway. We are here today about our family. We have several programs, but our Family Resource Center is the program that we're here about, and they serve children and families and children up to 21 years old in all of Carroll County. Some of the services they provide, they go into the homes and into the community for families, and they provide home visiting, parent education, support and advocacy, developmental screenings for children as needed, family counseling, and then a big part of what they do is the resource and referral to other programs. So I know that our family support providers have probably worked with everyone we've talked to, maybe not the watershed, but other people that we've talked to
Unless you're training Lake Coast, maybe.
Yeah, and in this fiscal year, we have 2 families, and in November, we've had 4 more referrals from Wakefield. So that's.
Oh, that's fine. No, we didn't want to cut you off if you had more to
No, the
say.
sun is
I mean,
shining. I know you guys want it.
The selectmen recommended $1,500. Anybody have any comments or questions on?
Move the line.
I second. I guess not. Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And I did want to say we have a new website up, childrenunlimitedinc.org, so if anyone wants to check out, there are a lot of great pictures and more information about all of our programs. And again, people, if you're ever up in Conway, please come visit
Is
us.
the website address on the information that you sent to us?
So I have to be honest, our financial person sent the information because we've sort of divided and conquered as I'm getting all the grant processes and everything under my belt. So I am not sure if the website is there, but I can send something with it.
Great. Thank you very much. Cornerstone B&A.
I think they're right there.
Visits in 2017. They made a request of $4,062, and the selectmen's recommendation is $4,000.
So I'm Jennifer Gullison. I'm clinical director at Cornerstone VA. Carrie Landry is our finance director. So we've been around since 1913. We do home care, hospice, we do a private duty program, we do palliative care, we do community services, and we have 38 towns. 38 towns. Yes. So we go as far south as Portsmouth. We're based out of Rochester. We are nonprofit. We're independent. And one of the biggest differentiations, we work very close with Central VA, so we consider them a partner. And the reason that we have, I would say, increased business in Wakefield is because there's a need in this outreach area. We actually recently in August expanded to Ossipee and Effingham. We also expanded to Wolfboro because that's actually where the need is for the population. So the ask for this town is new because I would say specifically is for, we don't do Medicaid or self-pay in non-funded towns. So we want to be able to provide that in this community because the need is there. So we are going to each town that doesn't provide that funding to ask for help. And we do provide a lot of services. We have Medicare, we have commercial insurances, but the need is there with the homeless population, with people that can't afford insurance. And we want to be able to provide our specialized services in pediatrics, and we have wound programs, we have Austin, we have mental health. We're probably one of the only agencies in our area that provide all those specialized services, and that comes at a cost.
How big is your organization, staff-wise? How many employees?
We have about 170 right now.
Yeah.
And we are now with the expansion, we were requested by the case managers and the hospitals to continue to expand. You all have mentioned the growing elderly population, and there's room for more agencies to help participate in this area. The need is there, and we want to be committed, and we don't want to have to turn anybody away. I can tell you in the last several months, the patients that we have serviced, we continually lose money. So we've lost $13,000 just in these past 12 months on your citizens alone. We request the $4,000 based on the per capita rate of the 80 cents on the dollar for your census. The census hasn't been done since 2010, so that's pretty low, but as long as we have commitment from the towns, we want to be committed to you to help service those with the self-pay and Medicaid as well.
So when you mentioned not not taking Medicaid in towns that don't donate? Is there a connection there that towns have to donate in order to be eligible to get that covered, or those completely
There's usually a
disconnected?
waiting list. We have to service our patients within 48 hours. So when the hospital or a doctor refers them to us, we have to be able to accept or turn them away to another agency or to another program immediately. So if for whatever reason we don't receive funding from that town and we do have a time frame and a waiting list, then we have to return them to a different agency.
Thank you.
But we don't want to. We don't want to. We want to be able to service everybody that our case managers and hospitals are referring to us.
Did the selectmen have anything to add, or did anybody have any questions on?
Well, I think we kind of addressed it when we addressed the visiting nurses to start with. So
Yeah.
I'll move it to 1,000.
Second.
Motion a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for coming out.
Thanks for waiting.
Not a problem.
And the last on the list is 100 nights. I think we got some information from that organization. I don't see that. Okay.
Did you refer this person, or?
100 nights?
Yeah.
I knew nothing about it. I had to do some research once Kelly showed me the request.
Okay. Well, the selectmen recommended $500, so.
Well, if they were there for 34 nights, it's pretty reasonable cost.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we verified, I myself personally, they sent us a note saying that they usually charge, and most homeless shelters do charge something, maybe not all, but it's usually very, like $50 a night or $10 a night. When you're there for 34 nights, obviously that gets a little pricey for the shelter. Although we didn't refer them and didn't know, I'm not opposed to having, the problem is there are not enough shelter beds in this part of the state. There's not enough shelter beds in any part of the state to shelter all the homeless people that inquire. And so a lot of towns, and I think Wolfboro runs afoul of this, as do we. Again, I kind of use that cutoff date of October, November, when people who are camping and living in their cars, we need to bring them inside somewhere. Unfortunately, sometimes where they wind up is in hotels and motels, and that's a lot pricier than a shelter bed. And in addition to that, a lot of, like, for example, the motels and hotels in Wolfboro, some of them close down in the winter, so then you're trying to locate beds for those people as well. And sometimes our clients wind up in those because we don't have a hotel anymore. So I think this whole issue of homelessness is problematic. One of the things that Arlene and I both asked 100 Nights is, could we just pay you for the client that we housed? And actually, wasn't it $834? I believe the price that they were estimating was $834. I'd almost rather come and check for the person they actually housed, and maybe not have this ongoing $500 every year and wait and see how it plays out and see if they do house additional clients of ours. But they really wanted to do the $500 annual, and since they've already housed somebody for almost twice that, I think that we didn't have a big issue with that ask.
Well, if they don't have anybody next year, then we look at that.
Well, and the thing is that we never know we try to shelter people as close to here as possible, because if there's employment involved, we want to protect that employment. We want the people to be able to continue to work and continue to have that. But there's only one single men's shelter in the state of New Hampshire, and it's in Lebanon. There's certain specialty. Obviously, there's more battered women and children sheltered under domestic violence, and we aren't even allowed to know where they are to protect their anonymity. But there's some specialized shelters, but there's, again, not enough beds for all the homeless people in this state, and may never be.
Because just
they have these people come out of the woods, and they haven't got to an addiction center yet. They haven't got any place to get any help. And we have to have a shelter out there, whether we like it or we don't like the shelter. I don't know a lot about it, but they have to go somewhere, because the guidelines are so hard now to get anybody in there. They just do anything but a B test on them,
And that's the thing they should probably be doing, but only 76. But the thing is, I mean, of course, we don't have any right to know, but I mean, Keene is 2 hours away.
Arlene does know. Arlene got the
Someone's
name of
over
the
there
person.
someone's stranded over there for some reason.
This is one thing that I was wondering.
I think someone's over there, someone goes to Keene and gets stuck over there for 34.
They end up going there, living there, and actually the only probably piece of document they have showed them that they had a license and they did live in Wakefield.
Right, it's like someone's stranded in Keene for 34 days by who knows, I'm sorry?
They shouldn't be stranded.
Well, okay, well, I won't say stranded, but somebody.
We are allowed to, Arlene is allowed to know the person's name because she protects their confidentiality, and she did vet that and confirmed that they were at one time a Wakefield resident. I think the flip side of this is that we don't know the demographics of this. They might have had a relative in the area, they might have been living with their parents, and their parents had passed. We just don't know what they might have been over there and their car broke down and got impounded, and that's where they were. We will never know why.
Right, but the point is like, once somebody moves out of town and they go, they get it, and then we get them. That's right, what's that?
How long we indebted to these, if these are transients and they are homeless, and it's a minor amount, $500. But when does it stop?
It doesn't stop.
That's what I'm saying.
RSA 165:1 says that the towns will relieve the poor and needy regardless of residency. If somebody drives into our town and sleeps on a park bench, we own them. We're responsible under RSA 165.
Yes, but we don't own it when we're in another town sleeping on a park bench, is what I'm saying. This is 500, you're talking about
He had a
somebody.
driver's license that said Wakefield.
So he could have stopped and slept in 3 towns on the way down there. I'm just saying, I'm not saying he, I'm saying that person. I'm saying, how do you know which community is responsible for this individual? And at what time length?
We don't, but
I'll tell you right now, I'm very worried about these shelters because we've only been asked a couple of times. But other towns are asked by all the shelters. And I have to be able to pick up that phone and make that call to that person like Martha's in Martha. I'm not supposed to do that, okay? I am supposed to go to a couple of agencies that pick up the phone and listen. And I know it's a good place. Can you take them? And there's no questions asked.
So, Kelly, the selectmen's recommendation is to fund it for $500 instead of just paying them the $834.
They wanted the 500. They didn't want to pay per person. They said, "Will you give us 500?"
So you're I guess next year we wouldn't have to fund it. Just because we funded
who calls, Jerry.
Yeah, we can revisit.
Go ahead, what were you gonna say?
We can revisit this every year, Jerry.
Right. Well, I'm just wondering, we don't have to obviously pay it every year, so.
Yeah.
What you don't realize is like, if somebody bills me, a lot of times they can bill us. But they can't accept somebody unless that I say, okay, after they're there 2 or 3 days, send me, and they've already filled an application out with them. I don't want to send their applications to the different shelters because who knows, they haven't changed what they're trying to do. And there's a thing that a lot of people don't realize. The Riviera is housing people. They live there now. They were people that lived in apartments and lost them. We have a big problem. And I'm not in favor of this.
And that's what I'm alluding to, Arlene, is just the fact that we used to have a situation with a local type of structure, the same as you were just talking about, where families would move in, the children would register in the school system, even though they're not residents, and then they'd be tagged with the special needs, and the town of Wakefield was responsible for them until they were 21 years old. And all I'm asking is, where does this stop?
And there was a big crop here, I remember when the selectmen, but I'll tell you something right now. If they live in the Riviera and they can prove they're from Wakefield, I don't know anybody in the Riviera, but I belong to an association with the welfare ministries right down to Rockingham. And when we meet, at different Wakefield, I'm going to find out about it. But because of some of the laws, we have to send a little bus or a cab all the way to Massachusetts sometimes to bring them to the school. It's nothing to do with me.
No, I know.
It's nothing to do with me. I'm against this.
I'm saying the system has a
They don't have
flaw.
to be special needs.
And we can't change this.
Just regular people.
So this,
Regular kids.
Well, you can by not funding.
this
See,
Keene
so you have to-
shelter, if a father and town
The
school.
shelter?
Yep, we would have to send a bus to that shelter.
Depends on the
Yes.
court order.
If they chose, we have somebody right now in another town, and they were given by the school, they were given the choice. You know, we'll pick them up, blah, 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 because the kid's so traumatized and what's going on in his short life. They chose to drive to school, and I said, don't come, I don't have gas cards, I don't have any of that stuff. I suggest you get used to putting them on the bus that this is gonna be long, short term, living in another town, until you figure out where you want your child to go to school. They refused that. They never asked for gas, they ended up in a motel, and they're from here. We did have to pay, which I haven't paid in years. You know, it's one of these things we had to do. I was right in a pond, I wasn't. You know, the people, the shelters like Russia, they get them back in the workforce. Most of these people are turned out, they get in the workforce, they get counseling for them, they send them to the drug addiction centers, they kind of check out their people. But this one came, I know nothing about it except talking to the girl one time. She wanted me to call her back, and I did, but I'm able. Her mailbox is full, so is that.
Here's the bottom line though, is that for $500, she needs to be able to pick up the phone and call a shelter. And the last thing we need with a limit on the number of shelter beds in the state is to have any shelter and not take a phone call from the town of Wakefield.
Okay, so if we fund it this year, then she can do that, but if we don't fund it next year, then she's gonna be back in the same boat. She won't be able to call the shelter because we didn't donate.
This is a perpetuating problem, and it always has been.
How many people are we gonna place in a shelter that's 100 miles away and takes 2 hours to?
Hey, they should never had 30 so many days in the shelter, okay? They never contacted me. That's one of the reasons I said next year. There won't be a next year unless they go by our guidelines. You know, who's ever in that welfare office, walk the walk. Well, everybody else has to.
Yeah.
I have to.
Well,
So
we should be aware that the meter's running.
Yeah, before they get to come. Down in Rochester, they were asking $40 to $50 a night for shelter space.
But the thing you get from the shelter that you don't get when we have to manage the program is you get case management. I don't know a homeless shelter, and I can't speak for this one specifically, but I don't know any of the other homeless shelters that I've dealt with in my 27-year career, and I've been either the welfare director or the deputy welfare director in every town I've worked in except this one. I don't know a single homeless shelter that doesn't have case management, and that's what we need. That's that referral piece, making them, you know, look for a job, putting their kids in the right school, all the intended things that come with that of shepherding them through the program, getting them drug counseling, getting them all mental health services, whatever they need. That case management is the piece that's worth paying for. Is to get them back as productive members of the community.
Well, we don't know what the case management is that they got if they're keeping them there for 34 days watching TV. I mean, and the other thing too is that this person that was down in that shelter, these people that run that shelter obviously know how to get benefits from disability or Medicaid or any of these other programs. We don't have any.
Medicaid doesn't pay for all.
I know, but we don't have any way of knowing that they didn't apply for another source of revenue.
If this sticks in the budget committee's crowd, then I would recommend that you vote against it, and then I go back to the Board of Selectmen and have them write the $827 check, because her expenses are only $6,000 right now, and she has a $20,000 budget. So I can live with either way. Honestly,
And the selectmen don't have to write that $834 check, right?
No.
That's correct.
no, they don't have to, but I would ask them to, so that we can continue to call shelter.
I don't think it's the amount, I think it's the
Principle.
principle, everything is surrounding it, so I'm going to make a motion to.
Just keep in mind, the only single men's shelter in the entire state is in Lebanon. So we could have people from Wakefield in Lebanon if they're single men.
We have a motion and a second for the $500. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm opposed. 2 opposed. 2 Grinches on this whole budget committee. There's only 2 of us. How can that be? Maybe we should try that again.
I just get tired of hearing it's only this year, and then next year it's going to be there, because it's like putting down a food dish for a cat out front. It's always going to show up.
The meter's running, these people know the meter's running. Did they call us on the first day that they were there and say, hey, this is costing you $28 a day? You know, so.
And this is the first time in 17 years this has happened, so, you know, we get all of us walk in and
Motion to adjourn.
We're gonna approve that bottom line.
Okay. Yeah, no, we
Make a motion to approve the bottom line for $109,853.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.